Well, greetings, fellow humans. Hope you are all well. Merry Christmas. There's a few things I've got on my mind today that I'd like to talk about. Nothing too overly important, of course, apart from the fact that we have just peaked past the full moon this morning. Peaked at 4:50 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Saves Time, just after the moon moved into Cancer, which is the home sign. So this year, Christmas is kind of special. And I found a few things from a friend on Facebook, which I'd just like to read out. I was thinking to wait until a few people came into the chat, but obviously you'll be able to see it on the replay because I will save the video for Ron. This one was from a place called Sacred Soul Healing, and it said December 23rd, 2018. So yes, for us here it is the 24th already, but for my friends in the United States, because of the way that the sun works on the flat earth, it means that you're like nearly a whole day behind us. The sun says, you can reap what you sow, therefore setting the right intention for your life is important. When you make your decisions, create from a place of love, not hurt. Choices made from hurt can create a massive mess. Remember, hurt people hurt people. Before you act, set the right intentions and create from positivity. Miracles will manifest in a life built on purpose. Pardon me. I should have cleared the throat earlier. So thanks to my friend Annette Kennedy. Big shout out to you, my dear. Lovely soul over in the US. She's got something in here which I think we all need to see. My girl put me in charge of planning a trip for our anniversary. Buckle up, bitch. It was funny. Eating spicy food releases feel-good endorphins, making it one of the reasons why people enjoy it so much. Weird facts. Well, this is a good one. We'll take advantage of this once we get some land. WWOOF, WWOOF, is an international program that allows you to travel the world with food accommodations covered in exchange for volunteer work. Awesome. Weird facts. This one was interesting. A man named Walter Summerford was struck by lightning 3 times in his life. After his death, his gravestone was also struck. Must have been a bad man. Scrolling. Wow. Looking good, Annette. Looking good. How do you ever just shut up? Another thing about Sunday, December 23rd. This powerful full moon remains intensely lit and will continue influencing our energy for at least a few more days. We may find we're struggling to sleep deeply, but still feel highly charged, awake and alert. This is because it is now time for creation. The next chapter is about to begin. It is vital to let go of anything toxic from 2018. Release painful memories, bad habits, and unhealthy relationships. Rest up, set powerful intentions, and get ready to see a beautiful new beginning rapidly manifesting. Amen. The one I saw on my feed earlier was a very long one. This is it. So buckle up, Dorothy. I'm going for a little ride. Better just lubricate the throat. The winter solstice and full moon. Now, I don't know that anybody knows this about myself. I'm actually born on the winter solstice in Australia. Hence why I'm Aussie Jesus. I know it sounds a bit egotistical, a bit full of myself. I'm well aware of that. It's something I've battled with for many years. But now that I've allowed myself to be who I'm destined to be, given myself permission to come out of my shell, my Cancer the crab shell. That's the sign I was born in, which is what the moon is currently also in, the Cancer moon. The moon also happens to be the ruling planetary body of the sun sign of Cancer, which is interesting because of all the sun signs, if you ever do any study about the zodiac and so on, you'll realize that all of them, all apart from Libra, they're animals, so Cancer the crab, but whereas Libra is actually the scales. It's an interesting one. But of all of them, they all are attuned to planetary bodies. They all have their ruling planetary body. And then the more you look into flat Earth reality, the more you realize there are no planetary bodies. But there is one. It's the moon, Luna. It's a lunatic out of all of us. So that is why I'd like to read this one, because I think it's got a really good message in here. The winter solstice and full moon. The solstice is one of the most electrically charged, mystical and transformational days of the year. It is also notorious for shifting our life out of recognition by delivering significant but unexpected beginnings and endings. Solstices, like all cosmic events, have a theme running through them and can relate to emotions and our relationships. We often find at this time people who are unhealthy for us to be around suddenly disappear from our lives, or we wake up and get out of nowhere, no longer feel energetically tied to them. And out of nowhere, not getting out. This can be an amazing time for anyone who's been struggling to let something or someone go, as the solar energy powers its way through and burns away attachments to anything or anyone toxic and harmful. The solstice's powerful vibration has been building for the past week or two, and many of us will have already felt the strength and intensity emanating from it. Those who are sensitive to energy may have been feeling as though something huge and profound is about to happen. And as we approach the longest and darkest day, and the moon moves closer towards its brightest and fullest form on the longest night, well, I better just interject there and say, well, that's not so here in Australia. It is actually our longest day and shortest night of the year. 6 months' time, when it is my birthday, that will apply. In recent days, for some of us, tempers may have flared, causing conflict, and we may have become separated from certain people as the solar and lunar energy combines, charges in and shakes everything in its wake. Solstices emanate similar energy to a full moon, but are far more potent and transformational. We may notice our energy and that of those around us feels volatile and highly charged, as though everyone seems extra impatient, ungrounded, edgy, emotional, anxious, or fatigued. Solstices affect us all differently, just as lunar events do. This is partly to do with the sign that the sun and moon are passing through, partly influenced by our own birth chart, and also determined by how we feel emotionally, mentally, and physically at the time. Some of us will feel extremely calm, grounded, and balanced during the solstice. Others will feel totally unhinged, as though the solstice has temporarily shifted their life out of recognition. It's important to remember throughout that whatever happens, the universe is always serving our higher good. The solstice is a catalyst that delivers much needed change. It is one of the wild cards of the cosmos. We are often unprepared for the rapid and dramatic shifts they bring. They are renowned for being a turning point, as they restart our lives in areas where we have procrastinated change and stayed in unfulfilling situations, or ones that made us feel miserable, or simply where we have not stepped into our power and allowed ourselves to shine and receive the success we know we are capable of achieving. During a solstice, we may want to purge and cut free from anything that feels dysfunctional or holds us back. We may feel drawn to start a new or end an old relationship, quit bad habits and negative thought patterns, make a career change certain beliefs, make a major lifestyle decision, decide we want to move home or even to an entirely new city. It is likely we will also make drastic changes in our personal spaces as we declutter, purge, and rearrange our belongings. We will likely notice our senses are on high alert. Everything feels and sounds louder, brighter, stronger, and more vivid than before, which may feel a mixture of empowering, overwhelming, and disorientating. At times, this can be challenging and painful due to the variety of twists and turns in such a short space of time. It is nothing to fear, though, as the solstice is nature's way of awakening us and sweeping away the past so we are free from anything no longer serving, and we have a clear space to plant new seeds for our future growth. A solstice is a rewarding, healing, and teaching period, although it can feel turbulent and destabilizing. But this is mostly due to the closing of a 6-month energy period since the summer solstice, which for us is the winter solstice. This means everything may feel as though it's coming to a head at once. However, it is all operating in our favour, and a divine energetic force will guide and support us through any difficulties if we are willing to trust the process, spend some time in silence, and tune in to the energy surrounding us. The solstice enhances our spiritual awareness, and our intentions and manifestations are known to be amplified at the time, and we will discover we effortlessly speak into existence anything heavy on our heart or mind. This is why it is vital to remain aware of what we are thinking about, saying, or hoping for, as we may be shocked at how quickly our thoughts become part of our reality. The day after the solstice is the final full moon of the year in the constellation Cancer, which occurs during an emotional Christmas period and brings major soul growth, shifts, and awakenings. Cancer is strongly linked to water, the element of emotions. This full moon teaches us to emotionally express ourselves in a healthier way, particularly around those who mean most to us. Feminine energy is vibrating strongly and is immensely healing. So intuition, sensitivity, tenderness, compassion, sensuality, insight, and affection will be enhanced, especially around those we feel a strong connection to. We will likely be feeling nostalgic due to the accumulated emotional cosmic energy, so we may be looking back at our past in an attempt to find answers. We may be curious as to why certain relationships ended, or why we are struggling to let go of relationships that fill us with heartache. Fortunately, our intuition is at an all-time high during this full moon, so it's the perfect time to go within and pay attention to our inner voice. We have an incredible amount of knowledge and wisdom inside. We just need to trust that whatever we want to know, we will find, especially if we stand calmly underneath the glow of the moon, quieten our mind, and absorb her energy. Cancer is a water sign, the element of emotions, and when the moon radiates in full power, the spotlight will be on love, intimacy, emotions, family, friendship, relationships, and intuition. We'll be feeling a deep desire to feel nourished, nurtured, cozy, protected, and safe, especially as we will likely be experiencing emotional tidal waves before, during, and after the solstice and full moon. Cancer is ruled by the moon, so when the moon is full and at home in her sign, we can expect our deep-rooted feelings and sensitivities to be illuminated. Cancer corresponds with the 4th house, the house of childhood, correlating to the past and the beginning and ending of homely matters. Over this period, we may find ourselves looking at our own role as a parent, or how we were parented, or even both. The following quote may resonate in some circumstances. However, forgiveness doesn't mean having to forget, as sometimes a safe distance is vital. Some of us need to forgive our parents, as some of them had a childhood that they need healing from too. Christmas time can feel stressful. Tensions can be heightened as many of us feel pressure to be happy, positive, and kind, regardless of any dysfunction simmering below the surface. Family and friendships can trigger us to respond in ways we usually wouldn't, especially if the atmosphere is highly excitable or alcohol is involved. Our temper may be tempted to flare due to feuds from our childhood or recent years coming back to haunt us. Biting our tongue is not as easy at the best of times, let alone when we spend longer and more intensive amounts of time with people who we are not normally or prefer not to be around. Rather than allowing people to push volatile buttons, we can override our emotions by deeply breathing and allowing the chemicals in our system to flow through and out, rather than erupting through outbursts. Cancer notoriously has one foot in the shadow of the nostalgic past and the other stepping into an enticing and brightly lit future. It is our choice whether we remain caught up in old behaviours, repeating similar patterns, or whether we force ourselves away from the past and directly toward our soul's purpose, creating the exact life and circumstances we want and deserve. We can ask the crab to finally release its tight grip on all it has been holding on to. It is the perfect opportunity to make peace with any conflicts that may have taken place throughout the year. Pardon me again. This is an intense phase that will cleanse anything that feels toxic in our lives, which includes bad habits, unhealthy thought patterns, reactive behaviours, outdated beliefs, and irrational fear-based thoughts and feelings that drain our energy and leave us feeling anxious and burnt out. Also, ties that energetically bind us to people or situations that are detrimental to us or that limit us in any way will easily be severed during this period, and we will feel the freedom to finally walk away with peace, love, compassion, and forgiveness in our hearts and minds. In particular, we will feel the urge to remove ourselves from dynamics with anyone who consistently provokes arguments, or those who are aggressive, controlling, manipulative, deceptive, judgmental, overly critical, and generally abusive. The choices we make at the end of this year will influence how the next year begins and sets the tone for how it will play out. It is a challenging period, though one that allows us to firmly take on the role of the alchemist so that we entirely transform our lives. We can do this by making a resolution for the new year to release the past and walk in the direction of a brilliantly illuminated future. It is highly recommended to drink plenty of filtered water on both the solstice and full moon day, and during the evening to take a salt water bath. If possible, find a comfortable place outdoors to sit beneath the moon near water, such as a lake or the ocean, or anywhere out in nature where you can moon gaze, rest, meditate, and relax into deep contemplation. Another easy way to attune with the moon and to ground and balance energy on a solstice or full moon is to head out for a relaxing barefoot walk in nature, if it isn't too cold. By the words from Alex Miles. So that's pretty much what I do all the time. Nearly every full moon. The weather hasn't been so kind this year. It's always been a bit damp on the full moon, just as it was last night. A big storm actually came, and it's still overcast tonight. But if you're doing it regularly anyway, it doesn't matter too much. Sister of Destruction says, "Hail Satan." Now, why would you hail Satan? What is that going to achieve? You want negative energy into your life, you get what you ask for. Negatorex, I stated some things that are blatantly false on the debate the other day. Well, I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Maybe the one yesterday or the one the other week. Merry Christmas. Sorry, Mr. United for the Children. Merry Christmas, you wacky down under guy. Hope you have a great holiday. Well, thank you kindly. May the same be returned to you and your family. Yesterday, perspective. Okay, well, it's actually one of the things I have come here to talk about as well, was the debate yesterday. And perspective is one of those things, is something that I know a lot about. I spent a long time studying this, so I know what I'm talking about and I know how it works. Release a balloon into the sky has got nothing to do with perspective, mate. Nobody mentioned releasing a balloon into the sky to do with perspective. We were talking about perspective in the distance as things get further away, or why they appear to get cut off bottom first, because they go into the distance. Something going up in the height perspective, of course it's going to shrink to perspective. That's so bloody obvious, it didn't even need to be said. What are you on, mate? Give me some. Cleansing prayer. I am now choosing to cleanse myself and release any and all thought forms, beings, situations, and energies that are no longer of service to my highest and greatest good, across all planes of my existence, across all universes, across all lifetimes. I ask that all energies that are less than love be transmuted from the highest good of all, and so it is. You are this. Don't know why, but something just called out to me to say that right now. So, message has been held for review. Let's have a look. Who farted? I love that name. Message automatically held for review. You must have sworn, Mr. Hoofy. I can't see it. Satan is a coward. You copy Satan because you are a coward. Nice channel content, sister of a retard. Damn straight, mate. Negatorex, you obviously don't know what we're talking about. Talking about a balloon going up high is not the same thing as talking about something getting cut off by the horizon, which rises up to eye level. That's the perspective we were talking about, not a balloon rising up and disappearing due to distance diminution, is the term is that I made up for it. I've made up quite a few words when it comes to perspective because a lot of it didn't even exist prior to me doing my investigations and coming up with how perspective works. And if you haven't watched my Thatcher's Law of Perspective video yet, you will see how this works to try and describe it to somebody who's trying to understand it from the simple terms. Now, you look at it like this, you see your little finger appearing to rise up, but when you lift it up, you can see it's flat and level. That's how perspective works. It appears that the things further away from you appear to rise up, and they create an obscurity point for the things which get obscured by it because they're down low. Sometimes the tops of tall things can still be seen because they're not obscured from it because they're tall. It isn't freaking rocket surgery. So why don't balloons become obscured? Well, if they're a hot air balloon going away from you, they will. You can watch this happening with clouds as you're driving. You can be driving down the road and you watch trees or buildings coming the way of clouds. It obscures them bottom first. They might come back into view because the tree or the building isn't the actual horizon in the far distance. Watching something going up has got nothing to do with being obscured by the horizon. Are you really that stupid, mate? Far out. -4. Thanks for devoting your YouTube channel to something that you think is retarded. Rolling on the floor laughing. Shh, common sense doesn't make sense. Not to some people, Mr. Who's-hearted. Some people just don't get the most basic, obvious things. You know, I had to explain several times over how just by looking in the corner of your room, you can see how parallel lines, the one of the ceiling appears to go down as it goes away from you. The one on the floor appears to go up as it goes away from you. And if given sufficient distance, which doesn't happen when you've got a wall stopping them, but if you can see it over 3 miles of distance, then the one on the floor will rise up to obscure everything else that's above it, depending on its height. It will start obscuring them bottom first. Obscuration by the horizon has nothing to do with perspective. Sorry, yes, you are sorry. You're a sorry little man. The problem here is you are a complete moron and a liar. Oh, right. How did I not get that I'm a complete moron and a liar? Sorry, mate. I've been a fucking truther my whole entire life. And if I find myself being wrong about something, I'll happily admit to it. It gets obstructed. Oh, God, the face palm is so strong in you. It's so bloody obvious. You go into a city, you stand at the base of a tall building. How does that work? You have to crane your neck back to look all the way up to see the top floor of it. If you walk across the corner at an angle, you'll notice that the roof line is going at these very strong angles. And if you followed a straight line from them down to the horizon, they would reach a point where they're obstructed. And that's how it works with the sun. Only the sun is way much higher than that building. So that's why when it's overhead, it's way up high. And when it's further away, it appears to be much lower. That's how everything works in perspective. It's so bloody simple, after having explained it that many times, that I don't understand why there are still morons like yourself who just don't get it. Perspective is not the reason the balloon shrinks. Distance diminution is the reason why it shrinks, because it's getting higher and further away and it's not very big. Same as a car driving away from you. It's quite small. It will disappear due to distance diminution before it gets obscured by the horizon, generally speaking, depending where you are. So nearby objects which obstruct things. It really is that simple. And if you're looking over water, where you're standing at 6 foot height, it's about 3 miles where things start getting obscured bottom first, which you morons believe is curvature. So I think I've done enough of reading your crap, mate. I've saved some of the comments already, which I was going to just read through. I haven't saved very many because there was heaps, and I may flick through some of the others afterwards. But first of all, I want to address this bloke who calls himself Davy Davis. As an Australian, I'd like to apologise in advance. Well, mate, as I told you last time, I'll tell you again, you don't get to apologise for anybody in advance. You don't speak for Australia. I speak as an Australian, but I don't speak for all Australians. I'm an independent human being who speaks for myself with my own advanced knowledge in the things that I've been studying my entire life. And I'm not one of these people that just goes to a university, gets a degree, puts on a flat hat and a black cape and thinks he knows shit because he's got a piece of paper, and then he can just go and earn a freaking good living the rest of his life by doing some lazy ass shit simply because he's indoctrinated. No, I've been learning my entire life. And I dropped out of high school to some degree. I did finish it, but I wasn't really going because it bored me. It's bloody crap. I didn't need to know all that shit. I started learning from esoteric books. I had bloody bookshelves full of books, which I still do. I don't tend to read them that much anymore, but I've still got a whole shitload that I'm going to go through one of these days. I mostly get my stuff off the internet these days, and just by going out into nature and feeling things and using my own intuition and understanding the things that I've already learned and applying them to real life situations. So, Doomsayer, what a great name. All these people that come along, they got these real great names, don't they? Doomsayer says, at Supley, Trump is a tremendous president. Believe me, he's the best. I know presidents and he's the greatest. Well, Doomsayer, for one thing, actually, I agree with you there. I think Trump is pretty darn awesome. I think he's come at this time for a really good reason. And I do believe his name being Trump is that for another reason. He is the Trump card, and he's here to pave the way for something that's happening, something big. I don't believe he's anything like any of the other presidents or politicians. And as much as I didn't really like the man before he became president or anything, I always thought he was a bit of a nutter and a fool. But when you watch that interview he had with, you had that Oprah, I knew it would come to me. He had an interview when he was much younger about becoming president, and his answers were spot on. And he said that if the time comes when he needs to become president, he will do it. And the time has come, and everything is happening for a reason. So I must say, I'm not a knocker of Trump at all. Oh, there we go, made that too big. Then a bloke calls himself Lord Sidonia. You don't have to apologise. Most of us know he's a loony branch on the tree. So he's saying to Davey Dave, I imagine. That's right, you damn straight don't have to apologise. I know I'm the loony branch on the tree because this is what changes the world. It's not you people who have to fit in. As they say, it's no measure of sanity to be sane in an insane world. I'd rather be the loony branch on the tree. I'd wear that badge proudly. I'd be insulted if you called me normal. So don't insult me. Call me the loony branch on the tree, and I'll put that on a t-shirt. Sid Wolf, Davey, it's okay. There's morons all over the globe, geopolitically speaking. So how the hell does that even make sense? People who believe in the globe, as I once did, you are brainwashed people. There's no evidence of a globe. Now, when I was 16 years of age and went as an exchange student to California for a year, at not one stage did the plane go over any curve. It just went up to cruising height and stayed flat and level the entire way to the United States. We did stop off, I think, in Tahiti on the way, and we stopped off in New Zealand on the way back. But apart from that, it stayed flat and level the entire way. There was no curvature ever. Now, it didn't really occur to me at the time because you think, well, it happens so subtly that you won't notice it, because that's how we get brainwashed into these stupid ideas that make no sense in reality. The idea of water curving in reality is insanity. So believing in something, once you've been shown the truth, is insanity. So if you want to keep believing that, you're free to do that. I don't care. I'm not judging you, but I will say that you're insane. Supley says, no worries, plenty of ignorant ass Americans as well. Well, that's exactly right. That's the one thing I discovered when I was over in the States, is that the education standards there are so low It was basically a military recruitment centre. And for the select few that stayed in the high classes and got the top marks, they got to go to college. But everybody else was basically, if they couldn't get an apprenticeship, they were recruited into the military. And that's all America really is. It's a big military recruitment center, and they keep you dumbed down. Really, really dumb. I went there doing junior year of high school, as they called it, and they were doing shit. Not even to the same standard as stuff I was doing 2 years ago here in Australia. It was just a joke. The only thing they do right, and they really force it on you too, is the physical fitness. You do physical fitness every day, whereas we only did that once a week over here. But obviously, they want their soldiers to be all good and fit. So that's why they keep pushing you to go to the gym, to run and do all their athletics and shit, because you make better soldiers when you're too busy being exhausted, no time to think, no time to study, no time to actually get an education. I mean, the shit. I went to the college for a couple of times with my elder brother that I was living with, host brother, we call him, and they were still doing stuff I'd already done in year 11 before I left to go over to the States. So I did half a year because their year starts at the end of June or something. So I just turned 16 when I went over. That's why they put me in junior year, even though my educational standards, I was way up into the senior and above. They put me down because of my age. So I can tell you that Americans, you're uneducated morons. And thinking that you've got an education because you've been to college, well, I'm sorry, but you're way, way behind. Davey Davis, he's made quite a few comments here. I don't know why I keep saving all his, but in Australia, we would call this guy an uncouth blogoan. He can't even spell bogan. And he can't even spell uncouth properly either. It's not how you spell uncouth, Davey Davis. So when you come calling me names and you can't even spell right, it's Uncouth. That's how you spell uncouth. And bogan is Bogan, not Bogoan. So you might think of me as an uncouth bogan. That's because I don't fit into any of your paradigms. I'm fucking something different, mate. You've never seen anything like me, and you never likely will again. And that's how it's meant to be. I am who I am, and I will be who I am. And if you want to call me an uncouth bogan, well, you can say it to my face rather than from behind your keyboard skirt, you big girly poof. Lord Sidonia. Man, Aussies have the best slang. Now, because he called me an uncouth bogan. It's pretty good, I suppose. The psycho one. That's Sir Turtle. I would chance to guess that because no one has definitely rebuked any of Red's claims sufficiently. Why change your claim if it? I don't know why I say all of these. Sometimes I just did them in a big block. Sib Wolf. It's always Red because most people aren't locked onto a single issue like Red, and Red knows his shit. Well, I'll give him credit where he's due. He knows his shit, but he's also quite full of it. But at least he was quite polite yesterday, and he didn't go ranting and raving like most of these globe heads do, because they're living in so much fear of having their indoctrination exposed. That's pretty much a big part of cognitive dissonance. Your first one is ridicule. That's how it starts. But then your next thing is this violent anger. And you see people like Craig and Red's rhetoric. They're full of all this violent anger now because they're still in that second stage of getting through the cognitive dissonance. They still don't understand that they've been fooled their whole lives, and they would rather go on being fooled than to admit they've been fooled. It's, as I told Steve, it's one of those things. It's far easier to fool a man than it is to admit you've been fooled. Yeah, good on you, negator. I don't like negatory people in my life anyway. Okay, if shrinking due to distance is perspective to you, then fine. You believe that if you like. It's a small part of perspective. Everything is perspective if you're using your visual bloody tools to view it, isn't it? That's what perspective is all about. It's how you perceive everything with your eyes. So shrinking is part of it due to distance, fine. It's an aspect of perspective. But the main one that most people don't get is how the ground beneath your feet appears to rise up to eye level to create the obscurity point, which will obscure higher things if they go far away in the distance, not far high up above you, you bloody idiot. Jeez, now you're making me swear. Doomsayer. In Oklahoma, we call flat earthers morons, and we contemplate putting them down. Aren't you globe heads just the most lovely people in the world? You can't agree to disagree with somebody. Like, what does it hurt you? What does it hurt if I have a different opinion about the world I live on? Does it make any difference to your life whatsoever? You can believe it's a globe all you like. It makes no difference to me. I believed it was a globe all my life until only about 5 years ago. Actually, I started believing in the hollow earth and that we're on the inside probably 20 or 30 years ago. It was just something I entertained as a concept because I had the ability to entertain a concept without necessarily believing it to be a fact. But I'll entertain something and I'll store it in my knowledge until I make a bigger picture of everything. And the flat earth is the truth movement that is setting us free. So all you globeheads standing in the way, you just clutter. You're unimportant. You're not necessary. We don't need you. And all you're doing is coming here and making fools of yourself. What are you saying now, negatory? It is not a small part. That's all. No, it's not. It's not all there is to it. Can you look down the road and say the reason you can't see all the buildings further away is because they've all shrunk into nothing? You idiot. You fucking complete and utter moron. Perspective and looking at balloons is hardly anything to do with how we talk about perspective. We talk about things setting or being obscured in the distance. Just shut up, mate. Jeez. So yeah, Mr. Doomsayer, they contemplate putting them down because that's what they've always done with heretics, isn't it? That's what I was trying to say the other day, but everyone keeps cutting me off all the time. A couple of weeks back when I was on the Non-Sequitur show, I was saying that heretics have always been burnt at the stake. You can't handle people telling the truth. You get so upset that you contemplate putting them down. You'll burn them at the stake. You'll crucify them because you can't handle the truth. You just want to live in your comfortable safety, doing what your masters tell you, believing what they tell you, and not questioning anything. You just want to know and believe what you're told by authorities. Oddballs. Flat earthers know their shit. They must smoke a lot of it to come up with such stupid ideas. Well, that's funny you might say that, but I did used to smoke quite a bit of good shit. I smoked it regularly every day back in the day when I had my kids and when I had a business, a thriving business, which I built up from the ground up after it was closing down, and I bought it for next to nothing and turned it into a thriving business, which moved into bigger premises 3 times and had a storage warehouse because I know my shit. I do what needs to be done, and if I have to smoke shit to do it, that's what I did. But the day came when I actually did find enlightenment. It came to me out of the blue. I was sitting in my lounge room. It was the day before my birthday. It was the 21st of June, which would have been the solstice on that particular year because it's nearly always the 21st. And I could just feel this wild energy happening. And I'm going, what's going on here? This is really bizarre. And I just got up and paced up and down the hallway a couple of times and I went into the room where the bookshelves were and grabbed a book randomly out of the bookshelf and opened it up. The book was called Thief in the Night, and the first thing I saw was The Christ Returns. And then as I went and sat back down, sat next to my daughter, I just had this major out-of-body experience. And I was gone for like thousands of years. I was gone timeless amount of time. And yet, in an instant, I was also back in my body again, and I just started laughing. I was going, oh, wow, I wear glasses now. And every bird outside just started singing. It was the most beautiful music, started filling the whole house with sound. And it was the most incredible thing. And the first thing I did is I went into the garage and I took my bong and emptied out the water and put in the covers and I don't need that anymore. It served its purpose. So when you use your medicine, you use it as it's needed. You don't abuse any sort of medicinal herbs and use them as required. If you do find you need it again for something medicinal, then it's okay to use it. Nearly all cannabis use is medicinal, even recreational use. But I think some people overdo it and they lose the benefit of it, and it will mess with their mind. Like if you overdo anything, use everything sensibly, use all the gifts that God has given us, and you won't have any problem. Davy Davis, this guy should take a swim around his island. Maybe the sharks will take him out. Isn't this another lovely, lovely human being, another fellow Aussie telling me to go for a swim in the ocean, which I must admit I haven't done that much this year. I only did it a few times. I used to go regularly every day, especially after I'd cleaned the pubs all night long down in Byron. I used to have the cleaning contract after my marriage broke up for the Hotel Great Northern, the Railway Friendly Bar. And after I'd cleaned both of those, I'd go down to the Belongil, where it was a clothes optional beach. I'd lay in the sun and defrost. I'd go into the ocean and clean off, and I'd go on these amazing swims. And never once was I worried about the sharks. Even some days I'd be out there with the whole ocean full of fish swimming around, knowing that there's sharks there. They still didn't bother me, because when you live in fearlessness, wild animals won't attack you. You can walk into a lion's den and you can just say, "Hey, how's it going?" And they won't attack you. You can walk through snake-infested areas. You can go anywhere you like because you are fearless. That is what it is like to be enlightened, to be in touch with the living mother and all her angels, all her children, and all living things. They don't harm you because you are one of them and you're aware of them. They're aware of you. You don't have to live in fear. So, yeah, this guy wants me to be taken out by sharks. What a lovely, lovely fellow. Don't you just love globeheads who, because someone dares to have a different opinion about the world they live on than they do, they want to do you harm? What the fuck is wrong with you people? So Turtle, why is it always red? It's not that I don't like red. I do, but he's super repetitive, and after a while he doesn't seem so different than the flat earthers. I think that's what he meant to say anyway, the flat heat there. Anyway, yeah, well, I actually thought Reds is the biggest fucking asshole I ever heard until I actually had a debate with him yesterday. And I thought, he's not such a bad bloke after all. He's a little bit arrogant. He rants and raves on a bit without letting me have a response so that I forget what the hell it was I'm going to talk about. But, he's full of himself. He's got his opinions and he's entitled to his opinions. And I proved him wrong because I explained to him how perspective actually works. And that when you mistake it for curvature, well, you're wrong. You're an idiot. Good, Negatory's gone, so we don't need him. Oddballs, flat earthers know that shit. I already read that one. Must have scrolled down. Sid Wolf. So, has everyone got their face protecting oven gloves with triple padding, a lighter, and commercial dumpster full of flat earth tears? I thought I'd just mention that one because the arrogance of some of these globetards, seriously, they are so full of themselves that they're not even prepared to entertain an idea without somehow thinking they have to be part of this group think. That's pretty much how most people get by in life. They get by because of the comfort of being part of this group. We belong in this group. Flat earthers don't. Like, I find nearly all flat earthers I talk with in general, I just don't particularly necessarily get along with them. There's some I actually do. But in general, we're independent. We're free thinkers. We don't think the way we do because we take comfort in other people thinking that way. But if we do see someone and we agree with them, we say, yeah, awesome, good stuff. You're a truther. You're not just somebody who's been indoctrinated from childhood into believing something without questioning it and turning into an adult and just abusing people and wishing harm upon them because they've investigated for themselves and think, I think the globe is complete utter nonsense. It's completely wrong. And it's done in such a way to brainwash us into thinking that we're insignificant on a floating little speck of dust in an insignificant arm of an insignificant galaxy in a massive universe that doesn't care at all, that we exist for no reason, but somehow we're still going to be good people because, we don't want to go to jail. No, we're good people to one another because we love and respect and see the God nature in living things, in living people, and we see the intelligence and we say, yeah, you're a good person. If you think for yourself, I'll have a beer with you any day. Asclepius, farmer snakes. I'll have to Google that. Who farted? Clubs, cults, organisation. I've always strayed from. Yep. I've joined a few, like I joined the bowling club, but I'm still always the outsider. I'm still always the one that everyone talks about behind my back. I've always been the weirdo. That's the way it's got to be. Sky Watcher. Now, this is interesting. A person calls themselves Sky Watcher. I'm assuming it's a guy because women are generally a bit nicer than this. Good morning, people and tards. I mean, who calls people tards in real life? Would you actually go walking into work and say, hey, tards? I don't think so. You just wouldn't do it. You go to the groceries lady checkout when you're buying your groceries and say, hey, tard, how's it going? No, you don't. So why would you say things on the internet that you wouldn't say to people's face? That's what really gets me, for all these brave keyboard warriors hiding behind their fake names, saying shit to people that they would never say in real life, because the internet is real life and it is changing reality. It is the tool that we are changing the world. We are bringing Christ consciousness to Earth, and we're doing it through communication. We're becoming aware. Gnosticism is getting more and more shared. All this stuff that was hidden and burnt, and the book burners over the centuries, all this stuff is coming back to light. And you cannot stop a movement whose time has come. Supply, Flat Earth Aussie Jesus. Cool name. Thanks, mate. At least somebody has some decency just to say something nice, even though they disagree with me. It's just a cool name. As I said, I'm not actually Jesus. It's, Jesus existed, they say, about 2,000 years ago. I'm more inclined to believe it's closer to only about 1,000 years ago. I think that they've changed our history so much that it's more than likely 900 to 1,000 years ago that he actually existed. But I could be wrong about that too. It's just an opinion which I entertain, and I've heard a lot of other people mention something similar. So it makes sense to me. I think this so-called Dark Ages are called that because they didn't actually exist, but they falsified everything in our history, and that we are actually living probably in the year 1000, not actually 2018. So you put that in your pipe and smoke it, and you start to realize why we are kept so dumb. We're kept as the slaves who went through the Iron Age revolution, the ones who made all the tools and machinery for these people who are destroying the world, and that we've become to love our servitude. We've been trained so hard to say, you don't even pay taxes, there's something wrong with you, you're not a good tax-paying worker. It's like, hang on a second, this isn't what we're here to live for, to be slaves, to serve the machine. We're here to serve one another, not the machine. You don't see any happy taxpayer actually going around and saying, hey, how you going, neighbour? Look, here's $100. Go and shout yourself out to dinner and your wife. Nobody ever does that because they're serving the machine. They're kept so enslaved in their own debt slavery. We're not giving to one another at all. We're living shit lives for shit ideals with a shit ending to go towards, nothing to look forward to. Oh, but you get a couple of holidays a year. That makes it all right. Live the dream. Davy Davis, don't flat earthers think Australia doesn't exist? Well, that is just the most stupidest thing that whichever idiot came up with that concept was obviously one of these morons who couldn't grasp their head around the fact that the earth might actually be flat. So they just made up some other bullshit to say that, to start some idiot idea going, and somehow the ball got rolling because people were already so much in their mindset of getting through their indoctrination, getting through the cognitive dissonance, that when they hear some other weird, freaky shit, like some of the shit Eric Dubay said about the moon creates its own light and it's a cooling light, when you hear this shit, you start believing it because you've already believed a heap of true stuff. Of course Australia freaking exists. My dad and uncle's friends started an organisation in the 60s called True American Society, speaking out against the New World Order. Ended up getting railroaded and taken over. I grew up in this shit. Yeah, mate. I hear you. This is what happens with any truth movement, is that people join it and they're agents. They're not genuine truthers. And even a lot of the people who do call themselves genuine truthers, a lot of them are fucking psychos anyway. I mean, I'll be the first to admit it. They've got hang-ups. They're too concerned about what people think about them to be worried about coming out and just telling the truth as it is. Like, I got involved in chemtrails years back, and this one woman who knew people in the Illuminati and so forth, she contacted me and we started a bit of a group to talk about chemtrails. And then she ended up saying to me, oh, you have to send all your letters to me before sending them off to the paper to be published so I can approve them, because I don't want my friends to see certain things and think that we're all nut jobs. And it's like, no way. I want them to think I'm a nut job, because then they pay attention to nut jobs and they say, what the fuck is this crazy lunatic saying this time? And you're at least planting a seed. Sunday is the first day of the week. Sun worship, serpent worship, heliocentric sun worship. How does the sun set and rise without moving? It's so true. Everything about our lives is slavery, control. Sunday being the day of rest, the holy day, saying the sun is God. It's the son of God, as I keep trying to tell people. When you worship the sun as God, that is when the downfall of mankind happened. And I think it goes way bigger than we could even imagine. I won't really go into that one yet, but I'm working on a big story to come out and tell how that happened, what happened with it all. But then the next day, what's that? Well, the moon day. Oh, well, the moon day is what I believe was put up there by the giants. I've sort of touched upon this, and this is the one I will be going into eventually. I'm still working it through in my own head. I'm using my own intuition to work all this stuff out. But the moon was put up there to say, well, if you want to worship a false god in the sky, we'll give you a second false god in the sky to mock you for losing your rights to live amongst the stars as we once did in these beautiful big giant trees. That's what we used to live in, and that's when we did live forever. We could grow eternally. That's how we were the giants. But somehow some of us fucked it up big time by committing original sin. And I've explained that before. I'm not going into that again right now, but I'm just saying, I think the giants got so pissed off at us that they decided to destroy us. But now, of course, we're enslaved. Then maybe they cut a deal with somebody. He says, well, don't destroy all my beautiful slaves. Let us keep some. You can segregate us from the rest of the universe, which is the infinite plane where divine races of beings exist, highly enlightened people with all their free energy, no pollution, who do live long lives, who practice flying and all sorts of things in their spare time. We're locked out from that for some reason or another. And we're being ruled by quite possibly reptilians, even shapeshifters that can take on a human appearance. The Black Hebrew Israelites stealing history. I haven't really looked into it a lot, but yeah, I believe that the original chosen people, yeah, were Black Hebrew Israelites. Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't they be? I mean, being white is actually a disease. And I don't say that lightly because I am a Caucasian, but we're not naturally meant to be that. We become that way because of all the shit food we eat, eating milk and meat and everything. We become all pasty and full of disease, which is what I say original sin is. When Jesus taught people and he healed them, he didn't just heal them with a magical touch. It might have taken a week or 2 weeks or some time of going through fasting and cleansing methods, removing parasites and so forth. And then he would say to them, go and sin no more. And he taught that sin is eating death, eating dead foods. And that is basically how the white race came about, because we lived in a place where plants virtually didn't grow at all. So we had really no choice but to eat flesh and so on, eggs, dairy. So we are descended from sinners because we're born in sin, we're born unclean. But if you cleanse yourself, you can become more enlightened, and you will naturally, by being out in the sun, darken up. Two in chat look completely unhinged. G'day, Psych Sid. Adamic versus Beasts of the Field. Not sure about one, mate. But I do believe that Moses tried to teach the people not to live in sin, but not to kill, but it was too hard for the people back then, and so he changed the rules and made 10 times 10 rules and said, well, you can eat these beasts, you can kill those ones, you can do this, blah, 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 until the time came when Jesus came along and taught that that was what the people needed in those days. But now we're going to live in more civilized times, and we have to stop the killing. We have to stop eating dead stuff, because you are what you eat. Death comes from death, life comes from life. Thanks, Psych Sid. I had a bit of fun. They couldn't get perspective no matter how you put it exactly. And neither could this other guy talking up there, what do you call himself, some moron or something. So to me, it's just common sense. Once you understand perspective, you'll never see it another way again. You understand that everything beneath you rises up to eye level, creates the obscurity point, and then the higher things get obscured bottom first as they get further into the distance. It's quite simple and basic once you grasp it. Took me quite a while though, because even I didn't understand. Your son is black mixed. Beautiful mother. Nice. I've always had a thing for dark-skinned women. I don't know why, but it's just me. I must admit, my wife, she was bloody Swedish, very blonde, blue-eyed. So my kids are all blonde, blue-eyed. But after we broke up, I've never looked at a blonde again. No way. Long black hair, dark skin. My beautiful fiance now in the Philippines. She fits the bill for me. She's got everything I want. It's a really good point. So I think it all disappears at once. It all shrinks, or you should be able to see forever. I don't understand that there is this obscurity point created by the viewing height. We're really short and low to the ground. That's why your viewing height creates the obscurity point. It's and why you can see so much further, and why the horizon actually looks blurry when you're looking at it from a plane, because you're seeing so far that the atmosphere does blur it up, and it's not obscuring it nearly so much. But ordinarily, if you look down the street, your horizon's only like about 100 meters away, a couple of 100 meters tops. It's only when you're looking out across the ocean, where there's nothing there to obscure it, you might be able to see for 3 miles. So, of course, things don't just disappear. You can see actually these giant ships, as I was mentioning, down at Cape Byron, where when you're up at the lighthouse, you can see them. They're like the tiny size of a grain of rice. So the actual distance they must be would have to be like 50 miles or more, I would think, to appear that small. It really is bloody obvious. I'm still reading through a few of these comments here. Doomsayer. Here's another one of these really lovely people who has to say shit like this. I seriously think I'm going to hang myself in my basement if the world gets any stupider than this flat earth movement. Someone who can't just contemplate something, entertain it, and agree to disagree. So if I was able to comment to you, Doomsayer, during that chat, I would have said, mate, I've got plenty of rope. Would you like to borrow some? Because we don't need idiot morons who can't just agree to disagree on something and say, well, you make an interesting point. I don't think you're right, but I'll keep it in mind and see if more evidence eventually points to it. That's how it happens for most of us when we become open-minded enough to understand a different dominant paradigm of where we live, how we live, where we might be. Fred Harvey is another one who says, I hope Australia exists. I live here. Well, I know Australia exists, mate. I've lived here all my life, except for the 1 year I lived in the United States as an exchange student. So I've spent a few weeks in New Zealand at 2 different occasions and a few weeks in the Philippines on 2 different occasions. I've lived in Australia. So anyone who tries to say that stupid crap about Australia not existing, I would like to just bitch slap them so hard with a fucking bottle. Exactly. Mirroring the consensus doesn't make you special at all. It means you just want to conform and be a part of the group think. Being able to think for yourself, being the black sheep, you know, that's all change that's ever happened in human history has happened because of the original thinkers, not from people thinking the same way as everybody else. So if people's goal is to think like everybody else, then they can be a sheep. Let them live their life, live in their safe flock, guarded by their wolves, um, all this shit. Have I met, oh, yes, Doomsay, have you met Eric Hovind? I see this name getting dropped quite a bit. I've never heard, well, I have heard of it, I should say. There's that one, there's another one getting around a bit. I don't know why people keep dropping these names when they're really basically only have to put shit on them. I mean, why promote somebody you disagree with? Why would you do that? Is it fun to sit and poke people and laugh at them? You get your jollies out of that. That's what small people do. And I've seen quite a few people actually, even on the non sequitur show themselves, at times act like that. Especially some of the moderators. Quite a few of the moderators that they have on that show, you are little people. You constantly put a block on me because people are trying to put shit on me, so I stand up for myself and say, you give me a timeout. Like the other day, they were giving me 10 minutes at a time. I was like, well, fuck this then. Um, yeah, I've heard the name. Oh, Kent Hovind. Yeah, well, this bloke says Eric, so I don't know. I'm not a name dropper, and I don't really particularly follow any people. I've learned a lot of stuff off various people. Like I found people like Jeranism, Morgile, and Bob, the Globebusters people. I found them very interesting to listen to at times. I haven't listened to them in quite some time now, because what I actually found is that they're virtually saying everything I'm personally saying myself. It's like, hang on, are they taking my information, or am I channeling them? You know, who's channeling who here? So they come up with some really good stuff. Wrenches to knock out the truth. Yeah, wrenches for wenches. Um, I'm not going to read all these ones because there's so many stupid ones. They don't think space is real either. They should, as they have plenty between their ears. Well, they can't even spell there, right? I mean, this is what annoys me: is people who are putting shit on people for their intellect. They can't even spell basic words right. Like spelling to me was the most simple thing I ever possibly do. I mean, maybe I'm just gifted, you know. But my friends, I'd often let them copy off me in English class when we had the spelling test, and they'd even say, "Oh, we didn't copy them all because they didn't want to get busted and get them all right." I'd get 10 out of 10 every single time. The only time I get one wrong is because they couldn't read my handwriting properly, and I say, "No, that is what I've written. It's a G, not an A, or whatever." So, spelling to me is the way you communicate clearly to other people. And if you're trying to prove yourself to be an intellectual and discuss philosophical debate and so forth, and you can't even type right, then I think you're playing the wrong game. You should go back to the rock you crawled out from under and stay there. Supply. Yeah, I honestly never that it would get this bad. But of course, people prove just how dumb they can be. Flat Earth, lol, for fuck's sake. Say, oh, well, I thought Supply was a nicer person early on, but they're showing their true colours now. How is it bad to have a difference of opinion? I mean, isn't intellectual debate what it's all about? To have something interesting to discuss rather than just talk about the frickin' cricket or the football or whatever other shit you're following that's, you know, the bread and circuses for the masses to be entertained. I'd rather talk about something that stimulates my mind. And that's probably why I was a dropout in school, because it was just boring. It was slow. Everything took forever. It's like I could have learned everything I learned up till sixth grade in probably my first 2 years of school, when I was only 4 years old. It's just so slow and ridiculous. And it's designed just to dumb you down, to slow you down, to bore you, to take up your time, to make you feel that there's nothing better to do in life other than to go and work a meaningless job, earn your money, watch your TV, eat yourself to your early grave. I'm not doing that. Davy Davis actually says something sensible once at Fred Harvey. They would say they've been deceived. It's damn straight. That's what everything is about. The director of the CIA was famous or infamously said sometime in the 60s that when the American people have come to everything that they believe is false, our job will have been complete. That is genuinely what our slave masters are apt to do. They're apt to dumb us down, make us believe bullshit, because when you're believing bullshit and you care about bullshit, you're far easier to control. You're a far more obedient slave. You don't want to be punished for speaking up, because that's what heretics always had happen to them. Or heretics these days just get publicly humiliated and ridiculed. Lovely people, aren't you? Doomsayer. Yes, unfortunately. That's why if it gets any stupider, I'm at the very least praying for asteroids. See what I mean? This is the mentality. They think that we're stupid for questioning the indoctrination that we've had since infancy. And so they say, well, I'm praying for asteroids. I wish doom and destruction upon the earth because people are stupid. Tim Price, put on your idiot hats. Flat earthers are here. Geez, I haven't gone very far through these comments at all. So, flat earthers are here, so you have to wear an idiot hat to talk to them. That really makes a lot of sense, actually. That sounds exactly like what the globeheads do. They put on their idiot hats because flat earthers are there. Mark Beiser, how can an Australian be a fluffer? They don't even have the excuse of not having been to the southern hemisphere to get them past the two celestial pole problem. Well, I've addressed the two celestial pole problem quite a bit, and I am in two different minds. I think there's the most simple explanation that I can think of that seems to make sense to me with what I actually view for myself. Like, I don't have a time-lapse camera. I've never done it, taking time-lapse of the stars going around a southern celestial pole. What I've seen the stars seem to be doing is moving towards the west. And it makes sense over on the flat Earth. If all the stars are moving as one, going around the North Pole, and hence why the Southern Cross we see, by the morning it's far into the west, and that's when the people over in Africa might start to be able to see it as it's coming into their nighttime. And then it keeps travelling west all the way around until South America gets to see it, and then New Zealand, and then it's back here again. The second possible scenario, if there really is a southern celestial pole, is, well, if there's other lands beyond Antarctica, it would also make sense then that there are other suns that for these other continents, that our sun, it just goes around our equator, serves us. They'd have other suns. Why wouldn't they have other worlds of stars as well? So you could quite easily have multiple worlds of stars once you go far enough away from Polaris, which is our familiar North Pole where most of humanity originated at one point. So to say that the two celestial poles is a problem, I don't think so. I just think you just have to think outside the square and work out why it might be that way. How can you explain it? And if it doesn't make sense, well, keep trying until you find a solution. He was in advanced classes, even though you were poor. Went to school with a lot of doctors and lawyers' kids. Quit school in the 8th grade. Received a good enough diploma, GED, at age 17. Nice. Could have graduated in 6th grade. Yet now that I refute my teaching, I'm stupid. Exactly. That's exactly how it is. Nearly all self-made millionaires are high school dropouts because they're too smart for the indoctrination, idiocy of school. School's for sheep. I like this comment from Cecilia Tio. I'm ready, non sequitur, blow my mind with flat earth madness. So at least you're open minded to a degree, but calling it madness, I can see that because I do come out with some really far out ideas, which I think are just testing the water, planting a seed, and seeing how other people take it when they hear it and see where it goes. Like saying the moon was made by giants, that's highly, highly speculative. I've got no definitive proof of that. It just seems to me to be a highly intuitive response to understanding what has happened in our long forgotten history and why the Grand Canyon looks like a giant strip mine. Kind of makes sense. It could well be 100% wrong. It doesn't mean you don't entertain an idea just to see where it goes. Flurfers are just effing frustrating, says Justice Fastazu. God, so this is where I only just enter into the debate. How? I mean, I probably would have said that first when I first looked at Flat Earth some years back. When I first looked at it, I thought, oh, this is insanity. But I'll entertain it. And it was actually Eric Dubé's 200 proofs at first. Just opened my mind up to the possibilities. I disagreed with him on a lot of things, and a lot of them weren't 200 proofs. They were the same one over and over about something in the distance being still visible. But a lot of things he said made a lot of sense. And because I do have a lot of common sense, I do have a brain that can understand what things should look like at certain distances and how much curvature should exist according to what the formula says it should exist at. And you start to realize, yeah, actually, I've noticed that all my life. Now I used to go up to the headland down at Yakabar at Hawk's Nest. It's an amazing, massive headland. And on a clear day, you look out to the ocean, you can just see so far. It blows your mind. And I used to think to myself, the world must be much bigger than we're taught. But then when you start to study the globe, when you set out to prove it, because that's generally how a flat earther becomes about, they say, well, I can prove this. You study the formulas for distance and curvature and how much you should be able to see, and you realize, holy shitballs, either the globe is way, way, way bigger than we're told, or it's not a globe at all. And it makes far more sense to not be a globe than it does to be a globe with all these ridiculous speeds. It's actually quite small. At 90 miles of distance, it should be an entire mile of drop in curvature. And yet the world's tallest building is only half a mile high. So people don't understand height perspective, how quickly height changes, because we're always so low to the ground. We think we understand these things because we get told big numbers and we think planes are flying 5 or 6 miles high. I'm even questioning that these days. Are they really flying that high? Are they really flying that fast? There's a lot of things that people have been showing by comparing size perspective and whatnot to things and speeds that, you know, when you're actually in a plane, it really does feel like you're just crawling along. You know, when you take off, you feel great acceleration and you start flying and you're told you're cruising at about 500 miles per hour and you're at 35,000 feet or whatever they tell you. And so you just believe it. You go along to get along. But as I explained with another concept, how they try and tell you the distance of stars by using radio waves to measure it. Well, I say that radio waves are like any sort of wave. They're just a vibration that works because of the medium or the density of the medium that they're in. And so as you go up higher and higher, the air itself gets thinner and thinner, so the waves actually spread out much further. So what we think is a radio wave of 2 inches apart down at sea level, at a great height, it might be a radio wave of 50 feet apart. And so you're estimating height and distances based on parameters that are set at sea level that have nothing to do with reality of what they're really at. So the planes themselves might only be 1 to 2 miles high. The stars that we think are so many billions of light years away, once you get to a certain point, I would say at a rough estimate, no more than 50 to 100 miles at a rough estimate. That's my best guess. I could be wrong about that too. They maybe are quite a bit higher. But when you understand height perspective and you realise the world's tallest building being only half a mile high, and that is massively high when you're standing at the bottom of it, that something doesn't actually have to be all that high in order to actually appear to be very high. So my best guess, actually, the sun, all these people saying it's 3,000 miles away, I'd be more inclined to say it's more like only a few hundred miles away, tops. Again, I could be wrong. I don't know, but that's my best guess at this stage. So Pheno 3000. Oh, look how the desperately uninformed are streaming in to boast about their level of incompetence, but none is willing to fight the flat Earth one-on-one. Well, that was true. Nobody did, and I thought, well, that's their opinion. Well, they're right. They don't have to go and fight against these arrogant, rude, angry, bitter people who I just found out. We all found out now why he's so angry and bitter about it. It's because his son, his little 9-year-old boy, was abused on the street by somebody who believed the earth is flat, and it made his little boy cry. So that is why he's such an angry, bitter, disabled man. I don't like to use anyone's disability against them, but he admits to that himself. Says he's severely dyslexic, which is why he can't spell or type at all. But he's so opinionated, and he thinks he knows all this stuff about stuff because he got free training through the Navy of Scotland. So he's got it all down pat. And his poor little 9-year-old boy was made to cry by somebody who was trying to tell him some truth, perhaps. That, you think you live on a globe. It's like my little daughter cried when I first told her that Santa doesn't exist. Does that make me a bad person for saying Santa doesn't exist? Should we fight the people who are against Santa? Yeah, that's basically Craig's mentality. How dare you say Santa doesn't exist to my child and make him cry? I'm so angry and bitter at you, I'm going to abuse the shit out of you. I'm going to crucify you. That's the sort of shit he was going on with. So, anyway, Attila the One. I like the name. At Mark M. So Mark M was the guy trying to speak up on the flat earth. If you feel so strongly, why don't you let me have a discussion with you on the show? If you're truly teaching the truth, there's nothing to fear. And then that's pretty much when Mark, I think, disappeared because he must be camera shy. VRCNGTRX. Oh, Jesus, look at this guy. Well, that's right, mate. And I will tell you something about that. The reason now I grow my hair, but the last 25 years or so, I've shaved my head. I've shaved everything but a goatee, and I haven't let my hair grow. But after spending some years in contemplation of it and thinking that it's true, the American Indian trackers, when they were employed as trackers to go to Vietnam, they had these amazing intuitive skills where they could wake up at the approach of attackers. They, just had amazing skills, which they thought would be useful to have in warfare. So they recruited them, gave them the military haircut, sent them off to Vietnam, and they found that they'd lost all their abilities. And it turns out that our hair actually acts as an antenna. It is part of who we are, how we feel the vibes of where we live, how I think a lot of the psychics have grown long beards because they act like antennas to pick up on things that the ordinary person is missing out on. The person that wants to make himself look like a little boy keeps shaving it all off. So I've just decided to let it grow and go with it. And so now I get attacked. I look like Hobo Jesus. I look like a homeless man. It's like, for fuck's sake, you can't win. When I shave it off, they tell me, oh, I'm prematurely balding. It's like, no, my hair grows so thick, I got so much of it that I would shave it off because I'd get the worst dandruff, get itchy and shit. And every time I do it, I'd rub my hand over my scalp and I'd just come away covered in flakes. I learned how to get through that too, through correcting my diet and through using proper natural oils and coconut oil. So, Mark M says, the only warped way of thinking is that we live upside down, spinning ball world. Damn straight. Somebody commented on that later, I think. But I remember what they said. They said, Nobody says we live upside down on the globe world. Cheers, who farted? Will do, mate. We're the outlaws and indoctrinated. Simulation theory is the next biggest propaganda for the masses. Yeah, there's part of the simulation theory that does make some sense. The Mandela effect is sort of making some sense with as far as being a simulation, but it could also be something else. I was watching an interesting documentary or interview the other day of John Lash. Highly recommend him. I don't agree with everything he says either. I think he's got some things entirely wrong personally, but he opens your mind up to other possibilities. And he's saying that the Gaia Sophia correction, which is what we're going through, is also Lucifer. Lucifer is not Satan, completely different thing altogether. But he's saying that the Mandela effect might actually be the Mother Earth herself, part of the Trinity, Lucifer, Gaia Sophia, children, is that it's her sense of humour, having a laugh at us and showing that she's here and she can change anything. And all we have to do is ask for the change we really want and we'll get it. So when we're seeing all these little jokes being played everywhere, it's like hinting at the fact, holy shit, what if we all came together with one united thought of what we really want? How do we really want Earth to be? We want to get rid of all this criminal activity? Do we want to get rid of all this crime and corruption in politics? Do we just want to be living free people without paying taxes? Do we free men on the land? Do we want to make this world paradise? Do we want to return to the garden? We can do all this if we can unite in thought and ask. Ask and you shall receive. This is the change. This is the correction. This is what our role is. If you don't ask for it, you don't get it. Mark Caesar, of course, has to make a smart ass comment. Aussie Jesus fell off the earth. His Velcro shoes failed. Yep. More mentality of the globe heads. First, one of them saying we don't live upside down on the spinning ball. Then the other one says we fell off because of our Velcro shoes failed. Hence why, as an Australian, I can quite happily say I'm a flat earther because we are not down under. We've never been on the bottom of a ball. We've never been on the top of a ball with the other people on the other side being on the bottom of a ball. We all live on Earth, which is above sea level. And it's not moving, it's not spinning. The sun's moving and the stars are moving and the moon is moving, but the Earth isn't moving. Amos Clark makes an interesting point. If we treat gravity as a dimension instead of force, it is possible. Now, I tried wrapping my head around this because he said it several times. Gravity as a dimension. I'm not quite sure that Amos knows what a dimension means. Dimension means, in my opinion, to be a rate of vibratory frequency where different beings exist. So we, the physical beings, exist in this physical realm, which is the physical dimension. Now, as I explained about the sun being an interdimensional portal, I believe that it is the highest angel, Lucifer, the light bearer, who is transforming the true light of God from a higher dimension where we cannot exist in physicality. We can exist when we shed our physical bodies and we exist as light beings, but that's being in another dimension. So obviously the sun, being the giver of life, is the Son of God. I've explained that several times. I'm not going to go too much into that again, but I'm going to say that this idea of treating gravity as a dimension instead of force, it's possible. Well, sure you are, P. Mars. There's no such thing. So I don't think gravity is a force. This is the biggest mistake people are making, is they're saying it's a force. It has to be a force. Why else would it accelerate? It can't accelerate without a force. Well, the dropping force through the density of the medium. is what creates the acceleration because of the weight and shape of the mass. I mean, you don't see light falling at the force of gravity, as they tried to explain to me that you can detect the movement of light. I believe there are different types of light, and the one that they're talking about, creating photons without an artificial light, is far different from the way the atmosphere glows or is illuminated or it's fluoresced. It's all the same thing as a result of some sort of electromagnetic force coming from the sun. I believe it just causes it to glow, and that's why as it goes further and further away, it stops glowing, and that's why we can start to see the stars for our nighttime. I don't believe it's a spotlight or a torch or anything burning, any sort of like an artificial light source. It's a different sort of light source altogether. There are multiple forms of light, as we know. Fire is a form of light, but it's not the same thing as your electric bulb, for example. They're all different forms of light sources, and they all create different effects. Some create far more heat than others, some far less. So I have to disagree with you there, Amos, but good on you for having a suggestion, having an original thought, unlike most of these globetards who've got no idea. This Aussie sailing bloke, he likes to stalk me quite a bit. He says to Mark M, that's because thousands of years ago they had no clue. I'm just leaving that alone. Missing Drix said again, look who popped in. That's right, mate. I turned up. Yeah, this is what I'm waiting for. Oddball says, hey, flat earther, the 1400th century called. They want their stupid ideas back. Here he is again, can't even spell there. There's an I in it when you're saying it belongs to somebody. But anyway, let's just pretend you spelled it right. The 1400th century want their stupid ideas back. Well, let's have a look at that. In 1666, this guy called Newton came up with this concept called gravity. In 2500 or 500 BC, 2500 years ago, some alleged bloke who's never written any books, there's been no studies of his actual books, even though a lot of other Greek philosophers did have books published, like Aristotle and so on. But this bloke called Eratosthenes calculated the size of the globe by measuring shadows of sticks. And that's why you think we live on a globe, but you're telling me that something from the 1400th century, you couldn't even say it right, something from the 15th century would be how you pronounce it, or from the 1400s. And they didn't have phones, so how could they call and want their stupid ideas back anyway? So saying stuff like that and saying that we're insane for believing ancient superstitions totally flies in the face of why you think you live on a globe, because you base it all on the ancient Greeks knew, Eratosthenes knew. As I've explained this one multiple times, if you line up a heap of dominoes or batteries or Legos or something of similar size across your desk, shine a lamp on them, measure all the shadows, you can calculate how curved your desk is and how big it is around in a ball if you use the right formula. And it's really simple to do, but it doesn't mean that your desk is flat for is round for 1 second, does it? You know for a fact your desk is flat. So measuring shadows from a local light source at different times of year, different places, proves nothing about living on a sphere. So I'm glad that you mentioned 1400th century, Mr. Oddballs. Pheno 3000, Satan, eh? Santa. Well, yeah, the Santa Claus pretty much is. That is what the Santa Claus is. Satan is the great deceiver. Satan comes from Saturn, the planet with the rings around it, the Lord of the Rings, as it's called. He's the great deceiver, and it's fooled mankind into believing that space is physical, physical bodies. And that's how we've come up with this whole concept. That's why we hang baubles on our trees and everything to remind us of this great deception. The Satan Claus is all about heliocentrism. As we've just seen on the solstice, the sun has descended into the underworld because it goes as far south as it goes on December 22nd, and after 3 days it's noticeably higher again. So they celebrate the birth of the Son of God on the 25th of December because it's the great deception, calling it God. It's not God. It's the Son of God. And so that's why it's the Satan clause, isn't it? That's why it's all ho, 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 Merry Christmas. Have some more mushrooms. And at least back in the day, they actually did use real fly agaric mushrooms. You know, you aren't that smart, right? You might be wrong there, Mr. or Mrs. Ganville. That's an interesting name. I actually know that I am pretty smart. I know I've done the IQ test multiple times. And the last time I did it, when I was pissed off my brain late at night, I still got 143, whereas the 2 previous times that I got 148. So I know for a fact that I'm actually quite smart. I know how to interpret all sorts of information. I know how to read and detect information where other people miss it. And so if you want to say that I'm not smart because I don't agree with your indoctrinated beliefs, well, good for you. G'day, Kim. Thank you very much. Yeah, I saw your comments occasionally. I couldn't see them while I was on because I had to go to a different page where you don't see the live comments, but I did see a lot of them since. That's why I'm reading through some now because I haven't even barely touched the surface of them, but I might have a look through some of the others later. Have you had a proper IQ test and psychological assessment administered by a licensed clinician? Well, I am my own licensed clinician, Ganval. I'm above and beyond licensed clinicians. I did enough psychology and psychiatry back in the day that it's all shit. It's all indoctrinated shit. Oh, jeez. Jesus thinks the earth is round, dumbass. Shannon, I'd say your dumbass is probably round, probably very, very round, but how the hell would you know what Jesus thinks? You don't know a damn thing what I think. Oh, I've been waiting for the trolls to come, a bit of entertainment. Did I hear that there are hoes here? Russian bot. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Where's my little window gone? Before the comments, here we go. Pete Shea, tell your child you are moving at the given speeds at Lineator. You wouldn't dare. Well, most people don't even know what speeds we're going at. You know, when my sister started looking at me like I'm a complete idiot for believing in the earth, I'd ask her, well, how fast do you believe the ground you are standing on is currently spinning? And she didn't have a clue. It's like, well, you know, it's all relative or something. A speeding bullet moves at 1,700 miles per hour. You think the earth is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. So it's 2/3 the rate of a speeding bullet. You believe the ground you're standing on is moving that fast. So that's not Jesus. It's a picture of a Buddhist monk, somebody to represent Buddha and enlightenment. Like Jesus didn't just become Jesus without going through training. He learned from the Buddha. He learned stuff from all the different Sufis and so forth, all throughout India, all throughout China. Some say he even went to Japan. So you don't become Christ conscious just by believing in a savior and saying, give me Christ consciousness. It doesn't work that way. You have to study for years. You have to cleanse your body. You have to go through fasting and preparation. You have to live out in nature. You have to do yoga. You have to learn all the healing arts and herbs. And eventually Christ consciousness may come to you if you are ready for it. So, missing a couple of comments here. Tinkerbell, hi, Merry Christmas. If we had the flat earth people in yellow vest, you sure win. Good thinking. Yeah, we certainly wouldn't want the Glovers there because they love their indoctrination. They live to be slaves. Yeah, Merry Christmas, Kim. Good on you. You seem smart, bro. I got a him. I'm going to start watching you. Oh, thanks. I'm going to start watching you. Cheers. Yeah, I have a go. Sometimes play a bit of a fool and a bit of an idiot, but I know for a fact that I have a very sharp mind and I've interpreted a lot of stuff that most people have never, ever complimented. So even just when I'm meditating on the beach sometimes, or other times in a tree or at the base of a tree, I've connected with nature in such a way that you can't do intellectually. You can only absorb it by experience. So for somebody to come along and call me a complete idiot is simply projecting. You're going like this, and you're not looking at the three fingers pointing back at yourself. If you think I'm an idiot, I know what an idiot is, and I'm not an idiot. So my name's Forrest Gump. Bro, you're talking out your ass. Hey, where'd that go? I understand that you find some solace in these beliefs and feed your grandiosity. That's bullshit. I don't ask for any sort of grandiosity whatsoever. You know, if I wanted to be a grandiose motherfucker, I'd go out and do that sort of shit. I'm just sharing the fact that I have found enlightenment and that I'm here for a purpose and that I'm here to help all of humanity, even you ones who sit there and mock me and call me names and think that I don't know shit, is I've got the plan. There's a man with a plan and you're looking at him, Stan. I laugh at the thought of the ISS being pulled and simultaneously pushed along with the Earth as it supposedly spins and orbits the sun. Damn right, Sykes said. None of the globeheads get that. So when I explain it to them, they just say, well, all these speeds are relative, and as it falls around us, it's sucked back in by gravity, and it accelerates again and slows down and accelerates and slows down, and it's constantly going 17,150 miles per hour, and the people inside of it just float around as though they're in the vomit comet. It's what a load of shite. The space station is a load of shite. Did you watch the episode of The Simpsons when Homer was smart and mathematically proved God wasn't real? I didn't watch that episode. Oh, maybe I did. But you can't prove something's not real when you've just sort of said the name God. I mean, if you understand what God is, as opposed to thinking of him as an external being who watches over and judges us and all that. It's what Santa does. You know, Santa is watching out to see who's naughty and nice, see if you're going to get presents or punishment. That's the Satan clause. That's nothing to do with God whatsoever. God is the living God in all living things, and He is most especially alive in us, the living people, when we prepare ourselves appropriately to become a dwelling place for the living God to exist and to speak through us and to experience humanity as one of us. That is what Christ consciousness is all about. And it's not about being one Christ consciousness, it's not the Christ, it's about all humanity becoming one in Christ consciousness. So we're all united in the true living word of the living God. And that way we will defeat disease, we will defeat poverty, we will defeat all the things we don't like about this earth that you guys seem to defend and say, just shut up, grin and bear it, that's part of life. That's how it's meant to be, it's how it's always going to be. No, we're meant to make this place bloody paradise. So to see an episode of The Simpsons, I know they do some really clever stuff, but for Homer to mathematically prove that God wasn't real was probably just some clever writers coming up with something pretty clever. Shannon says, dude, hey dude, don't call me dude. I'm a camel tick. Dude, how can you say you are smart? You believe in flat earth and Jesus. Well, no, I don't believe in flat earth. I've come to understand the truth about flat earth. That the whole idea of being on a spinning ball is a bunch of indoctrinated shit to keep you happy in your slavery, just think that you're insignificant, that your life is meaningless, that everything is meaningless, there's no point to anything. And so you feel comfortable in that, and you like to mock people who find meaning in life. And if you find Jesus, well, that is a good thing. Jesus was one of the best teachers that's existed in the history of this entire world. He taught all the best healing arts. He taught about fasting, internal cleansing, parasite removal, how to remove diseases. He was brilliant. He was a master. And so for you to mock a mastermind, one of the greatest people that's ever been on this planar earth, then I feel sorry for you. Jesus is awesome. Gandalf, if you weren't an idiot, you wouldn't feel the need to validate yourself to nobodies on the internet. Well, that's really nice of you to call yourself a nobody. But the thing is, somebody is going to see this. You might not be here live watching me now, but I know that quite a few people are. I've got entire 9 at the moment. I saw it reach 10 at one point. Calling yourself a nobody, well, that's really, and calling all the others nobodies, that's a really insulting thing to both the Father and to yourself and to all the other people. We're all here trying to seek some sort of meaning out of life and to have a purpose. There is no purpose in being a slave working yourself to the grave. It is meaningless. There's no truth in that. There's no purpose. There's no pleasure. So I don't ask for any grandiosity. Do you even understand the words coming out of your mouth? Of course I do. But there's the saying that you don't light a lamp and hide it in the cupboard. If my lamp has been lit, I'm duty bound to share what I know. So it doesn't make me grandiose. You think Jesus actually wanted to be Jesus, that he wanted to be treated like a pariah and hung on the cross in order to be considered a savior? He was sweating blood at the very thought of it. He didn't want it, but he did it voluntarily because he knew that the way you serve God is by serving mankind. He wasn't seeking grandiosity or fame or fortune, and neither am I. I'm just here because I've got a plan to make this world a much better place, to give us free energy, to give us free transport, to stop polluting it, to save our waterways, to regrow the forests, and to live in abundance for everybody. So don't kind of tell me I'm doing this for grandiose purposes, you fucking moron. Sorry for saying that out loud, but vertically and horizontally fired cannonballs is always a good one to throw at Red's rhetoric when he was bullshitting about proving Earth's spinning. I should have mentioned that, eh? The vertically fired cannonballs, because those tests have been done. They have shot cannonballs directly out of perfectly straight up and down cannons, and they have landed straight back down into the cannon that shot them, proving that there is no movement of the Earth. Oh, geez, Gandalf, you really going to say that Jesus was a nigger? You fucking idiot. Nobody calls anybody a nigger, not on my show either. People from Nigeria are beautiful, dark-skinned people, as are all the African people. And Jesus was from Jerusalem, and he was set apart from the rest because he was blonde-haired and blue-eyed. So don't come to my channel and say shit like that, mate, or I'll boot you off. See what Gandalf says? What a lovely, lovely gentleman you are, Gandalf. Don't backtrack. Oh, shit, I missed a few, did I? Shit, I missed a whole heap here. Do you understand what relativity means? I explained relativity the other week, that the simple explanation, the train standing still at the station and a train going past it at 40 miles per hour means relative to each other, both trains are moving 20 miles per hour. But in reality, one train is standing still and the other train is moving 40 miles per hour. Relativity is a lie to cover up the fact that Einstein and all of these other scientists and other people, high priests in your wearing their white dresses in your big schools and churches, could find no motion to support their heliocentric belief. So they make up this thing called relativity and saying, well, it's only moving relative to something else. So if we're both traveling at the same speed, you're still both traveling at the same speed. The only speed that is negligible is the difference. You don't understand what relativity means either then. Spoiler alert, Santa and God aren't real. Or saying something doesn't mean it's so. St. Nicholas was actually a real person, and he really did make toys to give to children on the winter solstice. And he was considered a saint, hence why he's called Santa. But he got indoctrinated, of course, with the evil of coke and other drugs being put into the brainwashing machine of your slave fucking nation you live in. That's all America is one giant slave nation, a military industrial complex that is here to dominate the world. And you're not welcome in my paradise world if you're going to believe that shit. Explain good and evil without explaining any relativity to each other. Well, that's quite simple. Good is God. God is life. Life, or live, spelled backwards, is evil. So evil is that which is anti-life, which is therefore anti-Christ. So you've got God, which is good. Destroy not that which God has created. If you destroy that what God has created, that's evil. So I don't know, you need relativity for that. You just understand to destroy not that which God has created, to be a living part of the living God, and to stop killing things, stop killing each other, to do no harm, to treat others as you'd want to be treated. That's what good is. Goodliness, godliness, same sort of thing. Evil is that which destroys. Absurdism is the only true way. Well, good on your Blue Helix. You're another one of these absolute legends, aren't you? Have fun. What does the shape of the Earth have to do with any of that? I'm not sure what you're talking about now, Ganval, because you speaking shit meant the comments weren't scrolling through the way they were supposed to. The Bible says the Earth is round, though, says M Standard. Well, what you can do? Do you think I follow the Bible? If you read the Essene Gospel of Peace, which Jesus spoke directly about, he says to worship not the dead scriptures of the Old Testament, but to be yourself the living word of the living God. So I don't really give two flying fucks what the Bible says or doesn't say, with any respect to what it says about the earth. If it's got clues to say that the earth may well be flat, because it says millions of times that there's a firmament, that it stands still on pillars and all the rest, well, people might want to use that as proof to support their Bible if that's what comforts them. I don't do anything to do with the Bible. I know that's the most chopped up, bloody censored book in history. The true Jesus spoke about the Mother Earth and the Mother Earth's angels, and all of that stuff got cut out of anything to do in the Bible, anything in the New Testament. So that's why I read the Essene Gospel of Peace and the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ if I'm going to read any Bible whatsoever. And they don't really talk about the earth at all. One thing in the Aquarian Gospel, though, which I discovered the other day, says that when Jesus was going through his Christship, where he became the enlightened one, the anointed one, is that he was shown the worlds outside the circle of the sun. So I don't see any of that mentioned in any Bible. So, Blue Helix, your balls are round and firm. I think your balls are in your fucking brains, mate. Ganbal, if you're so sure of your beliefs, why do you need to try to convince others they're incorrect? I'm not trying to teach anybody anything about being incorrect. I'm just saying that the truth is what sets you free. So if you're believing a bunch of lies, it's my duty then to set you free with the truth. Understand reality as it is and not believe a bunch of shit that messes with your heads, that has you brainwashed, has you worshipping Baal and all sorts of other nonsense that aren't serving life, that aren't serving humanity, that aren't serving us to become a better world. You know, I see this world as a place of insanity. It is an insane asylum, and it's because of your indoctrinated beliefs that it is so. So that is why I might be teaching what I can about the truth as I know it, because it's the truth that sets you free. Russian bot says, how many genders are there? There's no genders, mate. They're all general. That is such a distraction, the whole gender thing. You are whatever you want to be. If you're a male, if you identify as a male, be a male. Be a man, be a real man. If you want to be a woman, if you've got a womb, then you're a womb man, and you can give life to newborn children. And if you aren't born of a womb, then you're not a womb man. That's not rocket science. You want to distract yourself with all sorts of sexual fetishes and bullshit, by all means, knock yourself out. Just do no harm and don't mess with the heads of children. So you do believe in Jesus, yes. It's not about believing in Jesus. That is the wrong way of looking at it. Of course, I believe in the existence of Jesus as one of the greatest teachers who came to show the way for how we are to live, to become Christ-conscious beings ourselves. So yes, of course I believe in his existence, but I don't believe that believing in him is going to become some sort of savior to my soul. The only one that can save you is yourself. You have to become your own Christ, your own Christ consciousness. And you do that by stop putting death into your body, by fasting and purifying, by living close to God and nature, by obeying the laws of nature, doing no harm, obeying the commandments of thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not dispose of the flesh of dead animals in your body. Having a bit of a beer is actually quite a good natural thing to do because I make my own. It's made with natural ingredients, natural raw honey. It's a health tonic, and it's actually a living food. So having living food makes you a living person. Putting death in your body makes you death. Death is evil. So the Venus Project, a resource-based economy, would be good. There's a lot to be said for the Venus Project, Kim. I agree. Whether or not it's going to take off, a resource-based economy, I think resource-based, as long as you're talking about food and produce, the simple things in life. We don't need to have a most complicated kind of life. We've got all the technology now that we could possibly want. We don't really need to keep making more. We just need to maintain what we've got. We need to resort to using hemp for just about everything. We can turn the whole entire world and the economy around to give the wealth back to people and back to the land just with hemp alone. Like we're growing it, it's carbon neutral enough so that we've got all the fuel we need. We can stop mining all the oil out of the world that is toxic and polluting. We're doing so much wrong at the moment by growing hemp. The other thing I really want to stress more than anything is that we need to use that to make brick waterways, to pave the creeks and paths of the water and to make them in stepped formations so that every year we add another step to each one. So eventually we've actually got great natural rivers of pure living water that no animal ever drowns and no human can ever drown because you've got steps the whole way to climb back out should it ever flood. We've got to stop flushing all our water into the oceans. We've got to stop flushing our shit into our streams, and we've got to stop letting the cattle and everything else go and trample through all the streams, causing all this erosion. Every time it rains around here, I just see the rivers running brown, and it's just disgusting. You can smell the stench of the cattle, their shit and their piss, and it's wrong. We've got to stop doing that. We have to repair the Mother Earth with permanent ways. And when you do that with hemp, making the hemp brick out of the hemp herd, mixed with local sand and lime, you make something that petrifies into stone. So it's going to be permanent. We're going to create massive natural waterways, safe streams with safe access for the cattle and all the other animals that need to get to it so that we end death, we end starvation. The hemp seed will feed all of humanity. It's the most nutritional seed. It's got the best oil. And plus you can also then use the leftovers to filter it to run generators and so forth. For a while we still need generators to make electricity until we're getting it all free from the air. So there's so many ways to save this world that we live upon if we used our heads and applied ourselves and stopped living in this fear-based scarcity economy and started using governments to employ people the correct way to do the right things to enhance the vitality and wealth of every farmer. Stop sending them all into poverty and stealing their land off them. The way we're running the world now is just wrong. It is completely wrong. And so that is why I say I'm the man of the plan, because I've been studying this stuff for years and I know how to do it. So you might say I'm being grandiose. Well, that's fine. You can say that all you like. But if that's what you want to say about me, so be it. Somebody's got to do it. Nobody else is doing it. Team Skeptic, thanks for that. Even though I think you're a flat earth idiot. Merry Christmas. Good show on non-sec. At least you can put together coherent thoughts. One day you will be a globe earther. No, mate, I used to be a globe earther. I got over it. I learned that we're not living on a spinning ball, that this place is supposed to be heaven on earth. It's not supposed to be this insignificant little spinning dot in an insignificant galaxy going around an insignificant star. There's nothing insignificant about who we are and where we are. The flat earth is the mother earth, mother God, Gaia Sophia. Between the mother earth, the father son, we are the living children here to make heaven on earth. It's not really that complicated. And once you come to the realization, we are the children of God, happy days. No more living in fear. We can live forever if we choose to. We don't have to know disease or death or pain anymore. Lizard people live in the earth, says Grumpy. Now, I wouldn't be surprised, like reptiles have been around for a long time. And I would believe that some of them, back in the day when we were still living up in giant trees, far, far away from where all the dinosaurs still existed, they lived in places where the sun sort of hit them more directly. They couldn't live in the bottom of our great forest because they're too dark way down at the bottom. But that's where the nocturnal animals all dwelt, where we eventually had to dwell with them. The only thing we had for light was fire. But the dinosaurs and so on would have lived on the outskirts in the more deserted regions, sort of chomping away at the edges and so on. And yeah, there might have been some big flying pterodactyl type birds we had to watch out for if we went too high. That's why we probably, were told as kids, never climb too high, don't reach for the stars. Anyway, but the lizard people, well, why wouldn't there be a species of dinosaur that has evolved in such a way that they're so clever that they can project into your mind their thoughts to make them appear like a human being? I believe there are lizard people, but they're still reptiles, and they take on the appearance of humans because they know how to affect a weak-minded person. And I've been told about some of these lizard people before, and I had a weird experience one time with one of them. I won't mention any names here, but I noticed something happening out the corner of my eye where he just kept blurring in and out of existence. And I couldn't work out what's going on. And the weird thing was because I was talking about how we should be using horses for transport again. The reptiles hate horses. They live in fear of them because the horses sniff them out. And so he just went into absolute shock and horror while the other person I'm talking with, he's going, yeah, damn straight. We need to get back to using horses, and the horse and buggy days are actually the way to go. The only pollution they create fertilizes the ground. So maybe not in your cities just at this stage, but once we all return back to living on the land, liquid bread to right hoof. Which one did I miss up here? Isaiah 40:22. He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. Yeah, there's possibly something in that. I'm not necessarily thinking that might be just how they understood it back in those days. I would think there could be something even far greater than a giant tent, but it's a possibility. I actually came upon this idea some years back, which I've explained sometimes before, but I haven't explained this one for a long time. This is how I first came to think that we could possibly be living within a globe. And it's because I was really concerned with what I was seeing going on with chemtrails. They're causing illnesses, disease, controlling our weather, doing all sorts of things, really messing up with the local population and their weather and our water supplies and all this. So I came to the conclusion that what if we went somewhere out in the middle of the desert and we started, using a huge bilge pump and started pumping in a whole heap of ocean water and sand into a particular place. And we started using technology to melt the sand into giant glass blocks that sort of fit together like giant Lego blocks that sort of clicked into place. That made them very, very strong. They couldn't move anywhere because of the way they were shaped properly, not actually Lego, but big jigsaw type puzzle pieces. And we made giant domes to live within. You could make these places so pure that you'd remove all your parasitic insects and intestinal worms, all the things that can cause disease. All your water inside then, as it evaporates, will be collected on the inside and it will just flow back down around to be reused again. If you go and all your fish and food aquaponically, all your food growing is creating all the oxygen you need. You could create sort of like really large, self-sufficient cities that would be a really pure place to live where disease would be very hard to come across. And then, but because back in those days, I also believed in this thing called a polar shift, that every 10,000 years or so, the pole shifted places because I was still a globe head back in those days. And so I started thinking, well, how would you prevent a cataclysm like that? Like the external structure would be virtually bomb-proof. A nuclear bomb probably would just deflect off it because glass is really strong and the shape of a dome is one of the strongest structures known. Well, what if then you continued this dome and made it into an entire ball? And then your land masses could be floating land masses within. So if it's got rocked around in massive tumultuous seas, the size and weight of all the land would just sort of rock around slightly, create maybe something like a tidal effect. And then it made me go, oh, whoa, what if they've already done that? What if that's what we are living in? What if we are living in a giant glass bauble and the land is floating masses and this slight rocking is what causes the tides? So that's an entire possibility. So I wouldn't rule out the fact that that thought could be how we can create heaven on earth. By creating the dome, you create your local atmosphere. So you're ruling out floods, storms, earthquakes will be insignificant. You're actually creating a place which would technically be heaven on earth. You've removed all the parasites and the insects and the biting things that you don't want, like Australia is full of them. So you make sure that you decontaminate the entire site fully. And then you could build another one next to the next one and join them like in big circles of life. So eventually there's so much land in Australia. They try and tell us that we live in an overpopulated world. We could house 500 billion people in Australia alone if we followed this technique. So this idea of scarcity is just nonsense. It's living in fear-based nonsense. We just have to think outside the square, think big, do something huge, do something great, something bigger than the pyramids. Let me read some more comments. What do you think about Abramelin magic? Abramelin. I don't really know anything about Abramelin. Abramelin. Sounds a little bit like Abraham and Marlin put together. Jesus believer, by the way, earth is flat, by the way. Well, you can believe it whatever you want it to be, really. It doesn't really make much difference. But I just say the truth sets you free. When you're not living in spin, you're not living in fear, you're not living in anxiety, you're not worried about asteroids or aliens or any of this other nonsense that they're trying to get into your heads. Because these archons who are in control of this world, they feed off our fears. Everything, when we go watch a scary movie, it's almost like they're getting the sexual orgasm out of the fear that they feel emanating out of us. That's what they live off. We have to stop feeding into that. And the way we do that is with love. We overcome fear. We stop living in this psychotic society and we start living for each other, to do the right thing by each other. And they just automatically get defeated. They've got nothing to live off. They will disappear. But while they've got us living in fear, they're thriving off us and they depend on us because we are the life source that those vampires live off. Okay. Team skeptic, we can at least agree on that. Cool. Go into the woods for months, pray to our Father, hopefully they rebuke Satan while in that state. There are many ways to come to enlightenment. going into the woods regularly, you don't necessarily have to go for an entire month, though it is a really good thing to do, to go on a retreat, to do some fasting, to do some prayer, to do some cleansing, to get in touch with nature. It's one of the best things you can do for yourself. So it's a really good idea. And rebuking Satan, well, Jesus taught that Satan was like the intestinal worms within. So when he cured somebody of an intestinal worm in the Essene Gospel of Peace, this person was wretched in pain. His hands and feet were all clawed up, and he was in a terrible, terrible way. All this filthy stench had come out of his body through fasting for a week. And so Jesus said, well, he took him out into the sands of the riverbank, the hot sand, and he got some goat's milk and put it on the hot sand. And as the milk heated in the sand, it created fumes. And he said, breathe in those fumes. And he says, Satan finds this appealing. And Satan was the form of a large intestinal worm. And so as it starts coming out, the man nearly chokes. He pulls this giant worm out, which is like twice the length of his body, and crushes it with a stone. And so that's how you destroy Satan. And then when you go and sin no more, then stop putting foods in your body that feed the parasites, which is things like your milk and all your dairy products and all your dead flesh stuff. That's what they thrive off. So once you've cleansed yourself and you sin no more, you live free from disease. That's why he would say, go and sin no more. He was instructing them to stop putting shit in your body. If you want to be healthy, follow the laws of nature. Liquid bread, damn straight, mate. I love my liquid bread. Russian bot, you asked some interesting questions. How fast were the World Trade Center building moving when the plane crashed, when they collided with each other? I'm not going to go into 9/11. Within 3 days of 9/11 occurring, I was only fairly new to the internet back then. I was on a chat site called 9MSN. And to me, it was awesome because I loved writing letters. I was a writer. And I'd write letters to the local paper all the time. It came out once a week. I'd wait the following week to see if I got a response. I'd write back, get a response. All of a sudden, I had this 9MSN website, chat site, talking about the news. I could write a short letter, a paragraph or two. I'd have a response in a minute. I loved it. It was like, the information age is finally here. So when 9/11 happened, the place went nuts. Within 3 days, I knew for a fact, 100% without a doubt, it was an inside job. And when I later met a man who came and spoke to me and said, awesome that I was getting letters published in the local paper about chemtrails, because there's no point talking about them on the internet because all the experts would just say, oh, you're full of shit, blah, blah. But if I get it published in the local paper, I could at least reach an audience where it mattered for people who would actually see the local weather and see what's going on. This ex-Israeli Air Force officer came and got in touch with me when I had my local business down in Byron. I used to have the pet shop back in those days. He came and met me and shook my hand and said, who do you know at the paper? Why are you getting your letters published? I said, nobody. I'm just writing them, trying to make myself look a bit nutty, so that I get noticed. And he said, awesome. We've been sending articles and letters for the last 12 months, and they published one originally, and then they refused to publish anything more. And so I was like, yeah, well, I just saw what I saw. I did some investigations, and I found out about chemtrails. So I knew all about conspiracies going on. That's what I got. I've always been into conspiracies in one form or another. And so he said, well, this might be a bit of a shock for you, but I'm going to tell you that 9/11 was an inside job. And I said, yeah, of course, I know that. I knew that within 3 days. This was a good 12 months or so afterwards. And he goes, what do you mean? How do you know? I said, it's bloody obvious, isn't it? You can't just go and attack the most heavily guarded nation in the world unless they want you to do it, unless it's a setup. And he goes, well, 30 years ago, when he was in the Israeli Air Force, he read the book when they were making those buildings. It was the script where they planned this 30 years in advance that they were going to do this so that they could be part of this whole new world order. America has always been the lapdog of Israel, and he knew it. He escaped to America to get away from Israel and realized it's just as bad, if not worse, over there. And that's why he's come to live here in the hills where there's plenty of fresh water, where he can raise his daughters in a nice, peaceful community, away from the madness of the world, of this world of destruction that has been planned not just for the last 30 years. They've been planning this for hundreds of years. This is a big, big thing. And the only thing that can stop it is us, the people, the numbers of people, refusing to consent to their rule over us. So 9/11 was designed well in advance to cause this mass destruction, this mass sacrifice to their to their God. So how fast were the World Trade Center building moving? I think they were just standing still when they were brought down with controlled demolition. And that fourth plane that was taken down because some military people refused to follow orders and said, if our country's under attack, I will disobey orders and I will fight back. And they took down that plane. And that's why the third plane got taken down in Pennsylvania and didn't crash into Building 7 as it was planned to do. It was all planned well in advance. Beer is a brew, which is technically a potion, which is against God. No, it's not. If it was against God, God wouldn't have given us yeast to ferment the sugar into a preservative, which is far better for you than the preservative that the evil men are putting into our water supply so that our water reaches us in a slightly less diseased condition. They put chlorine in it, which is a known carcinogen. So if you're drinking tap water, you're also drinking the fluoride, which they put in our water here, which I'm not happy about because the decent filter I use to take the chlorine out doesn't necessarily take all the fluoride out, but you can only do what you can do. But making a brew is not at all anti-God. God gave us the gifts to make the best use of things to fight against disease. And alcohol is a mild preservative. It's like 5, maybe 6% alcohol. So it preserves the water. I put other valuable nutrients in it as well, lots of medicinal spices. I don't tell everybody the secrets to all my recipes, but this is a health tonic. It is not what did you call it? A magical a brew, which is technically a potion. No, potions. How can a potion be against God? Our role is to understand the nature of plants and how they work, and to use them medicinally to make ourselves super beings. To stop filling our bodies with death and destruction, and to live a pure life. And so, making your own beer is the right thing to do if you want to get away from all the intoxicated bullshit that they sell us commercially, like all that artificial beer. You know what they do with most of those is after they brew it, they heat it to evaporate all the alcohol out, and then they return the alcohol in so they can put on the label 4.8% or 3.5% or whatever it is, so they know exactly what it is. When I make a brew, it's different each time. Some of them might be 8% alcohol, some might be only 4%. But it's made naturally as God intended. So don't try and tell me it's a potion, please, even though I don't think a potion is against God at all. If you put your intent into something, you put your loving intent into anything, you're making a health tonic, not a intoxicating brew. And it's so right, Kim. Hemp for everything. Plastics, fuel, medicine, food, housing, clothing, and everything else. The whole lot. It is the superior food. Yeah, you put medicine in, good. I make my own cannabis medicine by getting a bottle of vodka. I could prefer to probably use pure ethanol, but that's a bit harder to get and it would make it too strong anyway. But you get a bottle of vodka, you take a couple of your finest buds, you put them in your bottle of vodka and you put the cap on. And you just turn it every day for about 2 weeks. It'll go this lovely sort of dark green colour. You need one small nip of that for a good medicinal dose, which will actually medicate you for up to 8 hours at a time. I don't like smoking at all. I'm totally over smoking. But when I use this cannabis tincture, I actually needed to use it yesterday because I was in a really bad way yesterday. I had some big dental work done, and the shit they used to try and numb the pain wasn't working. So the dude puts another big injection in. So my whole entire face was completely numb, except the bit where he's still drilling. So I just had to stop trying to twitch every time he hit the nerve and everything. But when that stuff comes out of my system, I was in a really bad way. So But yesterday, when I came online onto the non-sex show, before it started, my hands were like this, not because of nerves, but because I was detoxing. I was in a really bad way. I had the worst headache, but I took myself a nip of tincture, and then I started having a medicinal brew. And about halfway through the show, I actually started feeling a bit better. But I was not in a good way at all yesterday, but I bounced back pretty well. Hempcrete, all the way hempcrete. Hempcrete is the bomb. It is what petrifies into stone. It's how they made the pyramids. It's how they made all the places in South America. I can't think of them off the top of my head right now. Hemp is now legal in Texas. I'm about to try it and see if they stipulate me. Stipulate or stimulate. But yeah, make a cannabis tincture. I strongly recommend it. It's not like getting high at all. It is a little bit. You just feel good. That's what I think most people find when they do first smoke cannabis. When they first have it, they say it's not doing anything. But gee, I feel good. I'm hungry. It stimulates the appetite to a degree, but you don't even know you're stoned because it's something that the body receives like a key into the lock. We have receptors to the cannabinoids and so forth that is medicinal to us. When you have something that's toxic, like illegal drugs or pharmaceutical drugs, they're toxic. And the first thing your body does in the morning is pisses them out. So people that drink their own urine, not for me, thank you very much. I'm not a urine therapist at all. You piss out whatever your body doesn't want because it's toxic. But cannabis will stay in your body for up to 30 days. You can still be detected with it. It's definitely detectable within a week. That's because it's not toxic, it's medicinal. And all herbs are medicinal. You just have to learn to use them correctly, not to abuse them. Use them how nature intended. And John Lash, I believe it was, on his Gnostic interview I read the other day, I think it was over a year old, this one, but obviously it came to me at the right time. He was talking about one that was, it was about 12 months ago, and it's an interview with a couple of Aussie, or at least one Aussie chick, Aussie lady, and it was about Mandela effect. So if you look at John Lash Mandela on YouTube, you should find this interview. Very, very interesting, very worth listening to. And he's talking about how Gaia Sophia, the Mother Earth, produces all these plants for us, for our benefit. They are the living plants, which we are told in the Bible. I will agree with the Bible on that one, that the green-leafed herbs and the seed-bearing fruits are to be our meat. Hippocrates said that our food is to be our medicine, and our medicine is our food. A lot of the ancient wise people knew all these secrets, and that's what they taught. But a lot of the knowledge has been lost. So we have to rediscover this knowledge. We have to learn how to use the plants properly and how to make the correct potions from them, which is what a tincture technically is. If you soak a herb in vodka, you make a potion or a tincture. And it's not anti-God at all. It's exactly what God is saying we should do. I mean, ethanol comes from plants. It's not, it is something that you can abuse. So don't abuse alcohol. I strongly recommend not doing that. That's part of the reason I was detoxing so bad yesterday, because I did have a few too many Christmas drinks the days before. So use things wisely and in moderation, and you won't know disease. What are you having for Christmas dinner? Well, that's a great question. I'll tell you what I'm having for Christmas dinner. Nothing. I've got no food. I've got no money. I'm all alone this Christmas. I've got plenty of beer. So this is my third day of no solid food, and so be it. I'm not getting any work at this time of year. So yours has been held for review. Hoof-hearted. YouTube link. I'll have to click on that later on. Vladimir Nabokov. I think the lizard people thing is related to horror movies and psychopathy. The fear that a true psychopath can instill is quite stunning, especially an intelligent one. Damn straight. Oh, yeah. It could even be where the whole concept of demons comes from as well. It could be just thought projections from evil entities, like cold-blooded creatures, and not the same as us living warm-blooded creatures. They live to eat on death. That's what reptiles do. That's their sort of role in nature, to dispose of the dead stuff. But yeah, maybe they have been farming us for the last 500 years. I've often wondered that, if that's what the Vatican is all about, is farming us free-range slaves to build all the machinery for them, do everything. And if we disobey, well, we just get locked up, or we get kicked out of home. We become homeless. We can't survive in society. We get rejected by all the indoctrinated ones. And basically, we get treated as homeless bums. That's what people like to say about me lately. It's like, it's really such a lovely, caring attitude to have because of your indoctrination. So there could be something in that, Vladimir. Same thing with how they describe psychopaths as having goat's eyes, which again relates to demonic imagery. The truth is they tend to blink less and will sometimes gaze fixedly, as would a predator. Yeah, well, the reptilian eye, like the crocodile, is very much like the goat eye as well. It's really, really interesting stuff. Thanks, Vladimir. I hope you have a good festive season as well. The earth was flat before sumo wrestling. Groove dub, earth's not flat. Every flatter was into conspiracies before. Well, oh geez, I am way behind in the comments here, eh? 9/11 planned 30 years in advance, space is fake, blah, blah, blah. Well, you believe what you want to believe, groove dub. You go and dub, dub, dub and listen to your brainwashing music or your satanic brainwashing cult shit if you want. I know that the earth's not flat. I know the ocean is what's level, and the earth is the measurable part above sea level. So, yeah, calling it flat earth is the incorrect term. I prefer planar earth, and that's what I generally use most of the time. I should call myself planar earth Jesus now I think about it. I shouldn't have even used Jesus, but hey, you've got to gain notoriety somehow if you've got a message to spread, which is what I do. What a lunatic. That's a moon worshipper, lunatics. Yeah, we'll come back. Vladimir, I think being a drunkard is considered sinful. It is if you're a glutton. That's definitely a sin. Gluttony is a sin. There's, I think, the 7 deadly sins, isn't there? Slothfulness, gluttony, lust. I'll have to watch the movie 7 again to remember the rest of them. Who farted? Yes, sin is bad, but saying sin isn't sin is worse. Hence why you're a butthurt. No content full trolling others into you're a coward. Yeah. I love your work, Who farted? You just get straight to the point. Yeah. I think, well, sin is doing anything in excess. What is poisonous to one is healing to another, and vice versa. So it's knowing what to do and when to do it and not overdoing it. Then you're not sinning. Sin is when you're causing harm. So if I'm causing harm to myself by getting too drunk, absolutely. And I try to watch that I don't do that. I make it a point that I drink 1 beer at a time, most of the time. Russian bot. Is Saturn a planet, and how do you explain the rings? No. Now, this is what I was saying before about the great deceiver. Satan is the great deceiver. The rings are basically souls. Everything in the sky is souls. All orbs are souls. They're departed humans. The rings are those who, for want of their own choice, decided to worship Saturn. The Saturnalists. That was their choice. They wanted to worship that particular god. Yeah, there was always been multiple gods. That's why all the planets or wandering stars are known as gods throughout ancient history. And different people through different times worship different ones. And if they found it worked for them, that's the one they stuck with, and they generally inherited to their family. Most of us are now sun worshippers because we believe in the one true God. But back then, Saturn was just one of the gods, and a few followed him and made your sacrifices to him or whatever you did, you got your rewards. So the souls that he's collected are what creates the rings around Saturn. And that's why you've got moons around other planets. You've got all sorts of different things. That the heavens are where souls go to. And the great souls, the really great souls, are the ones who become the great shining stars. It's just my personal belief. And if I turn out to be wrong, I think I'll turn out to be wrong, but I've got a pretty good intuition on this sort of stuff. And that's how I've interpreted it through a variety of different methods and just through going out and communing with the stars myself regularly all the time and thinking they are living beings. And so it's the stars that you were born under. That's how you get your star sign. And so that's the ones who's watching over you because they're the ones who are particularly concerned with you as you came into physicality to be an air-breathing creature, to be a star seed. Humans are called star seeds for a reason because that's what we have the potential to evolve to if we have the right intelligence and intuition and find the right way, do the right path because we want to serve the Heavenly Father. As they say, when you're a child, you live in your mother's house, you suckle off your mother's womb. As you grow up, you go out to work in your father's fields. So while we're still children, living in our physical bodies, we're living in the great mother, and so we are serving the mother in her house. Then when our work is done here, we go on to our father's fields and we work there. You know, life goes on. And if for one reason or another you fail, it's no big deal. You don't go and suffer in hell forever and ever. You burn in the fires of your own remorse. That's what hell actually means, because in between incarnations, you realize the full weight of what you have done and you realize the karmic debt, if you have it. And so you get another chance. You get to come back and redeem yourself. And if you don't, if you live a life of being another utter prick again, going around judging people, harming people, creating chaos in the world, well, then that is why you're on this wheel of this circle of life for 10,000 lives. And that is why you get so frustrated. But we're reaching the end of an era. We're reaching a point now where we've come to an end where now we are ready to become enlightened ones. So we can become light beings in our own physical bodies now. This is the time that we have reached. This is the message I have come to give. We don't have to keep going through the cycles of life and death. We just have to stop sinning, stop causing harm, do no harm, love one another, be the love you want to be. Put loving energy into everything you do. Put it into the water that you drink and bathe in. Put it into the water that you make your beer from. Put it into the water you keep your fish in, that you water your plants with. Bring love into the earth, and the vibration is going to change everything. It will transmute all this ugly energy into life and light. I'll just take a breather for a second. So, yeah, I agree, Hoof-hearted. Don't call someone crazy just because you don't understand them. That's right. I could be speaking from a place of far higher knowledge. And of course, to the insane person, the one who hasn't reached this level of knowledge, you will see me as insane. That is how it works. That's how it's always been. The greatest minds of their time have always been treated as insane, thought of as crazy. That maniac living down the road or whoever it is. And as I say, they often burnt them at the stake or taunted them and did all sorts of horrible things to them. But now we've reached a point where you just have to accept the fact that some people know more and understand more and are more connected with the living mother, and that they're here to benefit you. So don't mock, don't ridicule, be grateful. Well, that's good, yeah. Vladimir, you said that right. Sorry, Hoof. I don't think I want to engage with you. Well, of course you do want to engage. You want to make your peace. I wasn't offering sanctimonious judgment. I was just saying that drinking too much is a sin. Temperance is a virtue. That's correct. You know, I see people they'll sit there and they'll drink 6 beers in an hour or something, and that's drinking too much. But just having one to sip on regularly to refresh yourself, that's not drinking too much. Temperance is a virtue, true, but sometimes we just have to go that little bit further and try to stay sane in an insane world. Who Farted says, the problem is flat earthers understand pseudoscience. We were taught the same bullshit you were. Exactly, we do understand it, but we don't believe it anymore. Like, I honestly think the education system is a form of indoctrination to prevent you from knowing the truth, to make you think that you're educated, that you're better than the people who weren't educated, indoctrinated, and somehow you are privileged to have this right of knowledge, this passage of knowledge. Now, we all know that the Masons learn by degrees. What do you get when you go to university? You get a degree. You're all learning by degrees. When you learn in truth and you absorb all knowledge, you don't learn by degrees. You learn all knowledge and you become the living word of the living God. This is how people who've become enlightened in the past have come to understand and teach, and not here to judge or ridicule or put up with being mocked by people who don't quite understand. So Jesus basically got crucified because he was teaching the truth, and the high priests of the church, who basically had all the people living under their rule and paying taxes to them and tithes, so the priests could live their lives of luxury while all the workers worked hard and believed they were going to go to heaven and did all the right things. They are very angry and upset that he's come here to wreck their system. They had a brilliant system. They had the money system. They could lend it to people and charge interest. They could have them indebted, so they're in debt slavery. Their system was working just fine for them. And he came to overturn the bankers' tables. And that is pretty much what I'm here to do again as well. And I know that I'm taking on the biggest enemy, the 9-headed beast who is in charge of this world. And I've got my work set out for me. So it's not going to be an easy task to take such a huge enemy on. And yet it has to be done. And I know that I'm not alone. We see the yellow vests in France. We see people all over the world. We've had enough. We are done with slavery. We're done with taxes and fines and being controlled at our every move. We are sick of it. And Australia is going to be the place. The real name of Australia is Olimoroa. Aulimoroa. Olimoroa. Moroa. This was taught to me by the Maoris when I was in New Zealand. That means the big island to the west. The Aborigines who lived here were a nation of over 500 countries before the English came and wiped them out in genocide. Australia is to be the lucky country. It's going to be renamed Olimoroa, and we'll be able to house, as I say, multiple billions of people if we follow my plans that I've got to save us. And there will be no taxes. Everybody will be free. You'll be expected to work your share, but you're not going to be expected to work all day, every day, and live your life in misery. You know, part of your work might be to be a musician or to be an artist. You know, we're not going to be living by a monetary system. Everybody's going to get all their needs met. What more needs do you need than clothing, housing, shelter, good company, free food, free beer, free everything? No more living in this scarcity where these elite at the top are just vampires sucking all the wealth out of every nation on earth. So when is Patricia Steer interviewing you? I'd love to have a good talk with Patricia. Thanks, Mike Redos. This message is held for review. I don't know if I want to open this one, do I? Nolita, Vladimir, you sick fuck. Yeah, I saw your pedophile. Yes. Oh, the middle path, as the Buddha under the Bodhi tree image suggests. That is temperance, exactly. Take the middle path. So please, Hoof, be a bit more couth. I think Vladimir is a voice of reason here. Um, I don't think we should be calling people sick pedos. Yes, pedophiles are sick people. They have something that they missed out on in their childhood and they've got a mind disease, but they can be cured with love. We have to be tolerant and say, well, maybe you just need a girlfriend, someone that takes care of you, because all this finger pointing and name calling and wanting to punish people for doing something that we disagree with. Love is love. So, of course, it's not right. You don't pick a peach before it's ripe and eat it because it's will make you sick. It'll give you stomach cramps. So you wait until the peach is ripe before you drink the delicious juices. So you leave children alone, and when they are ripe, at the ripe age of 18 or 16, whatever is the correct age for your culture, then they are ripe. And that is when you may enjoy their fruits. But these people who have this sickness to want to eat unripe fruits, they just need to be shown a better way, not to be judged and ridiculed and beaten up and punished. I mean, when I was younger, that was the attitude we did to gay people. And it's the sort of attitude I grew up with in that era, is that, poof to bashing, that was all the go. But now I realise, no, that they're really good people. They're loving people. If you don't want to have sex with them, you just tell them you don't want to have sex with them. And then they say, okay, you don't rock that way, but you can still be good friends and get along just fine. So these people that have this sort of illness towards children, they just need to be shown a better way and not, I just think calling them out, calling them names, trying to ruin their lives benefits nobody. You have to find a better way. Crime and punishment obviously hasn't worked for all these years. I mean, look at it. The more jails they build, the more criminals they put into them. We've got to do the opposite. We've got to set the prisoners free and teach them a better way by being generous to them, by giving them love, by offering them the things they need so that they don't have to resort to crime. It's the law itself which is the crime, by preventing the scarcity that this whole system is designed to do, because the ones at the top want us to be fighting over each other so that we feel good about our servitude. So every job that comes up, you've got 200 people applying for it, and the person most overqualified ends up getting it and has to work for minimum wage to do shit work and still pay taxes and still has no life. What a fucked up system we're living in. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. It's been getting worse for at least the last 100 years since they started their First World War, then their second one, and they started getting the women into working. So now they've got 2 incomes for every household. So they put the prices of houses up. Housing should be free. We shouldn't be paying our entire lives to live in a house. Come on, this is supposed to be the Commonwealth. Interwebs are stealing and suppressing our ideas. It's possible, but what we can do is keep sharing good ideas. Like I've shared quite a few of my free energy ideas in the past. I think it can quite easily be done. We can have free energy flying devices. The helium blimp, if made in the correct design of the egg is a vortex shape. So as the big blunt end of the egg pushes forward through the air very gently, it nudges it, the air rushes in behind it to fill the gap, which sort of helps push it forward. So then if you have something like, you can't quite see it over there, the Dyson fan blade, that's the one I pulled apart, the cheap Chinese import. You put something like that on the tail end of it to pump air out, it's an air multiplier. So you only need to pump a tiny amount of air into that to gain propulsion. Then you put your wing across the top of your blimp, so you've got stability, somewhere to put a whole bunch of solar panels so you can run your little air compressors, either off solar, or if there is no solar, you can just sit there with a little bike at your feet, create air compression with that, enough to just get you through the air nice and quietly with no pollution, free transport. If you're really in a hurry, you'll get a kite sail like the kite surfers use, and you'll chuck that out, and you might even stand up on the roof, probably wear a harness, would be a good idea, and just go, yeah, motherfucker, and fly through the sky free of charge. And that's the sort of technology we need to get across Antarctica as well. You have your ballast at the bottom, that's where you carry your cargo, so that keeps it weighted right. Anyway, that's just one idea for free transport. And helium gets too expensive, we'll use hydrogen. You can create a hydrogen generator, and if you're putting it into inflammable type balloon sacks of some variety, and make sure you don't put any naked flames near it, like the Heisenberg, well then there's another form of free elevation, and then all you need to do is harness the air to get where you want to go. Run it off a little 12-volt bloody fish aquarium pump. That's free transport. The other one I've said for free energy is you create a giant big donut ring, a big air tunnel. It could also work just as well with water, I've realised. You could use a water pump, or you just use a big fan blade. And then you have this ring filled full of dynamos or turbines, wind turbines, water turbines, whatever medium you're using. One pump, 20 turbines, free energy. Put that into your battery grid, back into the grid for other people to use. If every house had one of those in the ceiling, electricity would be free for everybody. We don't need to have these big coal-fired generators polluting our beautiful air and our beautiful streams. Now, we've got to get back to making this world beautiful again. And the way we do that, we have to realize that the air and the water are angels. They are high angels of God. Water is love manifest. Air is the living breath of our godly earthly mother. Her breath is our breath. Her blood is our blood. We have to come to the realization that what we do to her, we're doing to ourselves. Heliocentrism has gone and stuffed that all up, and it's made us worship the sun as the power of God, the powerhouse, and all we need to do is worship that, collect some solar power. But everything is all about fracking, fucking, mining, digging, stealing from the mother and polluting the streams. And that's all got to stop. It's all got to stop. Okay, boys. Nabokov was very much not a pedophile. He was married with a kid, loved studying butterflies. I like studying butterflies too. I love insects, actually. Insects are so cool. Where were we? Roderick, howdy. Vladimir, a true nerd who solved chess problems in his spare time. One of my uncles was a chess master. They named the trophy after him. Uncle Chris, Christopher Bryan. I think they made the life of Brian after him. And his last name was Lavis. If you go to St. Stanislaus College in Bathurst, you'll still see they have the Lavis Trophy for the chess master every year, named after him. He died at 19, brain tumours, because they didn't have cannabis therapy back then. Cannabis was considered an illegal drug. Come on, Hoopy. Many pedos are married with children. What's your point, sicko coward? Roderick, I am in Eastern Australia, northern New South Wales, mate. The town I live in is called Clunes, and it is in between Lismore and Bangalore. Bangalore is where I lived for 15 years before I moved here. Previously, that, I lived in Byron Bay, which is the easternmost point of Australia, probably one of the most spiritual places in the world. The easternmost point. I moved here well over 20 years ago for spiritual reasons. This was the place to be. It's a beautiful, green, living place. Anytime I go travel somewhere else, I realize the air quality just diminishes. There's not this living, vibrant energy that this place known as the Rainbow region. And it does have a lot of colourful people of all varieties. It's got large, whatever you call it, LG stuff communities. I leave them to their own devices. I just live here in paradise. When I get the chance, I go down to Byron and take some footage of the truth about how it's a flat earth. Flat earth belief is a sign of mental illness. Well, Trillian, that's interesting you should say that, because I would say the same thing about thinking you live on a spinning ball. It's spinning 2/3 the rate of a speeding bullet that is chasing, is going around the sun at 66,600 miles per hour. Well, it's tilted an actual tilt of 66.6 degrees as the sun is going 514,000 miles per hour through the galaxy. I would think that's a mental disease. Looking out at the flat, stationary, planar Earth is sanity. When you go outside and you look around and you realize we're not spinning, we're not moving, the oceans are flat and level, it is sanity. So if you want to think sanity is a mental disease, that's projecting your own problems there, darling. I like the name Trillian, though. It reminds me of somebody in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. One of my favourite books when I was younger. I loved it. Unicorns like mayonnaise. They do. What? Do they? Are you into? Geez, it scrolls through too fast sometimes. Trillian, you have a degree to make that determination? I think you misspoke. You said Heisenberg, you meant Hindenburg. Hindenburg, Heisenberg, Bergsberg. You're right though, Vladimir. Thanks for picking up on that. Are you into fighting chemtrails? No, I'm not into fighting them. I used to be. I used to think fighting them was the way to go. Then I realized that defense was the way to go, that by building massive glass domes was the way to fight chemtrails, because you're stopping then the pollution coming onto all your beautiful organic food you're growing and polluting your air and water and everything that you're breathing. And that this giant globe is what then can contain the water and recycle it and reuse it, being decontaminated by the UV power of the sun without anything coming in and polluting it again. So I thought, rather than fight chemtrails, they gave me a method of defending against chemtrails, and defense is often the best form of offense. And not only that, it solves a lot of other problems, because if you're living within a really glass domed city or village with lots of trees and stuff growing in it, you can basically just live in a hammock in a tree. You don't need to live in a house anymore, because it's never going to rain. You can sleep on a blanket on the ground under the stars, because it's never going to rain. You don't have to worry about cold weather, because all the air is temperature controlled by all your food growing rooms, which is done aquaponically. Now, as I said before, I had a pet store for 7 years. I know everything about fish keeping, fish rearing. Well, not everything, of course. There's always more to learn about anything, but I know a shitload about it. And I've realised that everything is connected. You grow trees to grow coconuts or whatever. You eat the coconuts. You use the coconut harness, coconut shell, can't think of the right word, with certain other woody materials to, in a jet fuel type stove situation, to smoke the flesh of the fish, because I do believe eating some fish is okay for you. I think ideally we wouldn't eat any animals at all, but I fucking love smoked fish. Smoked eel, the way the Maoris do it. Oh, the best I've ever had. So we've got to enjoy life. That's the main thing. then the carbon that you make as the leftover material from the smoke stuff, you use as water filtration to take the impurities out of your water. And then when the carbon becomes locked up with all the heavy metals that are toxic to us, you lock that up in with your hemp herd and your lime and your natural sand from the region, and you make building blocks out of it. And that therefore locks the heavy metals up where they belong, into rock. It soon petrifies into stone. Everything is connected. So all the food we eat creates the air we breathe. The water that evaporates through the plants comes back down for more pure water for us. We filter it through our fish. The fish waste feeds the plants, that feeds the food. We create a natural, healthy, super, unreal, free living environment where we are free from disease. So chemtrails actually inspired me, and that's possibly why we've been trashed with chemtrails for the last 2 decades, to inspire me for this idea to come up with it in the first place, and to realize that if living in a dome makes sense for us now, maybe somebody made sense of it a long time ago and did it on a much bigger scale. Ever listen to Matt Landman? I haven't listened to Matt Landman. No. There are rainbows everywhere. Oh, this rainbow region is just awesome. This time of year too, it's the storm season. It's normally really, really hot, but these last couple of days have actually been cold because reasons. Chemtrails. Multicultural people living together everywhere. Amen. There's more physics at play when dealing with free energy. You are just not smart enough to include them in your theory or to disprove physics as a science, proving you aren't as smart as you think. I was just giving you the theory in a nutshell, Russian bot. I know there's far more physics at play when dealing with free energy, but I've inspired a really good idea for how it could work and how it could be quite easily done, that pretty much everyone could have it in the ceiling of their house. You're also going to use the heat of the sun. This is before getting into the glass, promised cities and everything. If you're just living in a normal house, the heat of the sun can be harnessed as a refrigerant. That's how refrigerators work. They create heat that pumps the gases around through the compressor that makes it cool down. So if you're using the heat of the sun through the day, you're getting free energy directly from the heat itself to create refrigerant. And then, of course, the cold air comes down. So you have a pipe going down into your cellar. So you've got a massive cool room. So you no longer need a fridge. You've got natural air conditioning for your house, costing you nothing. And because it's going through on these turbines inside of it, my suggestion is that you have these wind turbines actually sitting of metal plate on ice. So when the ice is slightly wet, it's basically frictionless. So you've got like 20, 30, however many of these you can fit into your roof, into your big donut, that is each and every single one of them creating electricity. It just needs to have a trickle charge into like an old car alternator or something into your battery bank. The more of those you have, the merrier. You could stack them one on top of the other. You could have multiple of them. Free energy doesn't have to be that hard. It's just a matter of thinking outside the box, harnessing what nature gives us, and realizing that there are so many ways to have free energy. Now, I've been trying to tell people this for years, but obviously nobody's listened to me. I have to make a bit of a name for myself before these ideas can get out. So that's what I'm doing. I'm sharing these ideas. I'm giving them away for free. I'm asking nothing in return. But if you'd like to buy me a sandwich for Christmas, that'd be nice. Whoa. Scroll back up. You are a wingnut. Thanks. Chill. John Hawkins, a wingnut. I've never been called a wingnut before. Is Patrick Roddy? I don't know Patrick Roddy. Franklin Skies is the one document you had to ask my family to watch. Crickets, they still haven't watched. No. It's the trouble, isn't it? People don't want to know. They like to think they can trust their government. They really do. When I told my parents years back about chemtrails, they seriously thought I was a nutter. When I told them 9/11 was an inside job, they seriously thought I was a nutter. Eventually, certain documentaries came out that showed people that 9/11 was an inside job, and they basically all apologised to me and said, maybe you aren't such a nutter after all. I know stuff. I don't know how I know stuff necessarily all the time. I just have a gut instinct. Our second brain is in the gut. So when you listen to that one, you know far more than you will by listening to your intellectual one. Also, being left-handed doesn't hurt. It makes me use the right side of my brain. So I'm far more intuitive. And I just know stuff. As I said, 9/11 I knew was inside job in 3 days. But I don't know Patrick Roddy. I don't really know people that much. I live simply. I live alone. I try not to involve myself with people because I find people just basically talk shit. They stop your mind from thinking. I'd rather go for a long walk on my own, whether it be at the beach or down the road. Even the dog annoys me sometimes, the amount of noise he makes. But I don't need to have somebody blaring in my ear the whole time. And sometimes I think being around people too much, it clogs up your mind and stops you from reaching your potential. And that's pretty much why I've taken the path I've taken, because I realise I'm the only one that can do it. So at Microdose, yes, I'm in the Southern Hemisphere. I have observed the stars. I do it virtually every single night. Well, not quite as much as I'd like to, but regularly. And compared those findings with Northern Hemisphere celestial observations, well, it's a bit like going to the beach here and seeing that headland, and then going to the beach down at Ballina and seeing a different headland, and then going down to Evans Head and seeing a different headland. You're going to see the local things in your local area. The stars are local. So we see the local stars in our local area. Of course, I'm not going to see what you people see on the inner part of the flat stationary planet Earth because they're too far away. As something goes further away, it appears to recede further and further down until it's obscured by what's near. So I see the Southern Cross all the time. I love the Southern Cross. It's my favourite first thing to look at. Then I usually look for Orion, and then I look for whatever, because I just look at all of them without trying to think of their names, without trying to judge them and call them by something that they're not, and just thank them and appreciate them and tune into them and let their energy flow through me. That's what I do. I don't look at stars to say, you must be Alpha Centauri, A, B, C, blah, blah, blah. I don't care for all the names and numbers and all the shit that you give to the beautiful stars. I just look at them and say, I know you. How are you beautiful? I speak to all living animals. Hello, beautiful. And I think the stars are living creatures. They're highly advanced, evolved creatures. So I talk to them like my friends and my teachers. You aren't idiot. Shut up, Patrick. Why are you hiding? I'm going to scroll through a heap of these, I think, because it looks as though there's a heap of crap. There's the You Are a Wingnut one again. Smiggy Smodler. Why would you say something like that? Sean Hawkins is a real wingnut. Wingnuts can be useful, you know. I believe the one world religion will be Hindu, hence all the towers. That's not a bad comprehension. I don't think we need a one world religion necessarily. It could be Holy Moran. Let's start a new one. The Holy Mother of Flat Earth Church. But yeah, the Hindu has a pretty nice, peaceful religion. Buddhism is really nice as well. Christendom sort of came about by getting the wrong idea about one enlightened being who studied Buddhism and Hinduism and all the other things. The only reason I ever actually came back to following Jesus was because I started following Buddhism and realized, well, of course, that's how you find enlightenment. You don't find it by sitting and kneeling in a church, listening to old men eating little white wafers, doing magical ceremonies, saying, eat this, this is his flesh, drink this, this is his blood. That whole concept is just so wrong. You find the living God by living in the living earth, in the living world, sitting under living trees, eat the living fruits, not from magic ceremonies doing cannibalistic rites. It is just so wrong. Scrolling. Intelligence can be wrong. Of course, intelligence can be wrong. Anything has the ability to be wrong. Everyone, hang on, let me go back up to that. Where'd it go? Wow. A dehumidifier. Yeah, I've got a dehumidifier running here. It's been one of my inspirations. Everyone know you can use a fucking humidifier. Well, you shouldn't swear, but I'll show it anyway. Outside. That was just my plan like 10 years ago. I was doing a business plan for trying to get this idea up off the ground to put solar-powered water filters on every rainwater tank, on every home in Australia, running a dehumidifier with it. So you didn't even need to wait for it to rain to at least still be topping up with the equivalent of about 20 litres every day. The problem is solar power isn't designed to do that the way I wanted to do it. It takes quite a lot of solar to run the equivalent of a air conditioner, which is what the dehumidifier basically is, without cooling the air. And so even though I had an excellent plan, I got all the approval, all the government approval, all the rest, it just didn't pan out. It was 2012, that's right, because that's when I went back to the Philippines to see my lovely lady one last time before 2112 happened, and I thought the world might possibly end. That's the sort of mentality I had back then. It's like, oh, well, I came up with a good idea. If the world's going to end, I might as well go out and enjoy life. But so eventually the plan failed because I don't have the funds. You need money to pump into this sort of stuff. And I'm barely able to fucking pay me rent every week. So, when it comes to doing something with my brilliant ideas that I've got, maybe some of you people, rather than being criticizing, maybe you should say, well, how about I apply my knowledge with you? I'll invest with you. We'll become business partners and we'll get this thing happening. And we'll be able to create emergency water supplies anywhere in the world. Pure water. If you use a bit of a colloidal silver generator in it, you're also killing off all the bacteria. So you don't need to add chlorine or anything. You're creating pure, living, cleansing, healing water as fast as you can make it. Every time there's a crisis somewhere, go and chuck 50 of these things into the city or the town or whatever, wherever it's needed. All the third world countries, that's what they need. So, you don't have to tell me your great knowledge about dehumidifier, show us the tech, make the energy free. What do you think I'm trying to do, sunshine? Don't tell me I'm full of shit. I'm trying my best. At least if I'm putting out the ideas, someone might pick up on it. My only concern is that they're going to do it, and then they're going to patent it, and then they're going to sell it for huge profit. And so I have to say, well, no, I come up with the idea first. This is my idea. You can't steal it from me. You may use it for free. You may make a living from it, but you can't make a huge profit. You can't make millions and millions of dollars, as everybody wants to do with every idea they come up with. This has to be free for all humanity. Here's a thought. Gas pipelines running underneath every house. One bomb on one community will look like a nuclear attack because of the domino effect. You're a madman, Hoof. I understand the theory behind electricity and electricity transmission generation very well. You have the right idea about friction, etc. But what mines and creates the materials used to build such? Well, the stuff's already mined. Just make it out of recycled old cars. Get the alternator out of every old car. It's still good. Use the metal. Belt it out. Make Sylvanus rotors. Sylvanus rotors can be made out of any drum. Like all those places that use those, what are they, about 20-litre tin drums for their oil at the takeaway shop. You can turn that into Savonius rotor. It's got a fairly flat base, just flatten it out a little bit more. You make the rotor into an S shape that picks up the wind from any direction, and you can just cram as many of those into the tunnel as possible. It's not that difficult to do. And then, at the top you have your, or the bottom, whichever way you do it, have your axle coming out, and you put a gear wheel on it, and that then turns around your alternator. You might have two for every alternator. I don't know. I haven't really looked into the exact mechanics of it all, but I just know it can be done. I've seen examples of people using Savonius rotors. You just stick a Savonius rotor out in the air, it picks up the wind in any direction, and you can make free electricity from that. So why not make them a giant big wind tunnel, and you can just pump your own air into it using the power from one of the rotors to run it, and those other 20 to 30 or 40, whatever you've got in there, excess electricity. So it's not really that difficult. Another message held for review, Smiggy Schmodler. Have you ever been to Thailand to fuck little boys? Are you projecting again, Smiggy Schmodler? I go to the Philippines to find the most beautiful lady, and I'm still waiting to be back with her again after 7 long years. Thank you very much. I think the regulators in all the gas lines will stop it all from going boom. So I could be wrong, but I think that's what regulators do. They might just blow a hole in the pipeline somewhere, and then it'll just all leak out, or maybe have a flame coming out in one place, but it won't set the whole town on fire. They typically run on the street. Air conditioning works by compression and state of change at various pressure. The cold part of an air conditioner is actually gas that is boiled at low pressure. Yeah, I've always been very interested in refrigeration, so that's yeah. I've even got one of those old camp type fridges where I can run that if the electricity goes out by connecting a gas bottle to it and lighting a flame. So by using heat, you create refrigeration. The sun around here is so intensely hot. I don't see why we can't harness that heat to also create refrigeration just by redesigning it somehow. So air conditioning from heat makes far more sense than burning coal at a station, running it through miles and miles and miles and miles of electrical wires through a bloody fucking meter into everybody's home, charging people a freaking fortune just to keep their homes cool. It could be done free of charge everywhere you live. We just have to rethink the way we use the natural resources at our disposal. I think it can be done. And they have these things called shut-off valves. You have zero idea what natural gas line consists of. You are weirdo. You're going to shut off something that is present. Bomb drop code. Who the fuck is Patrick Roddy? Wrong idea is right. Blood cult is sickening. Oh, this is how far behind I am in the comments now. Okay, so they just jumped again down to the bottom. So I'm just going to stick to the bottom of the comments now. Sorry about all the ones I missed. I'd like to. I've shared a lot of videos, Schmiggy Schmodler. I've shared the one called the Helios. That's the one about the free flight system that I've designed. How you can harness air itself to power a blimp-shaped object through into a headwind. Plus, you can use other methods to also create propulsion. I created the one, I call it the aerosol. The aerosol is basically the air-powered one with all the turbines inside of it. I've shared the videos explaining how it's done, and I've had some pretty good feedback on some of them. So, it's nice to tell me to share a video without actually investigating what I've actually already done. Go outside and walk around. That's your working model. Go around the block and tell me you were stepping on balls. You're a funny man. That's exactly it. There's no proof of this spinning ball. You go around the block, you come back where you started. You go around the equator, you'll come back where you started. Doesn't mean you're on a ball. Thanks, Tinkerbell. It's all the same thing. Yeah. Schmiggy Schmodler, I think you must be a bit of a, trying to be nice to people today. Giving as good as I getting. The first thing I remembered in science is that everything is energy. Indeed it is. Everything is energy. I just think we're looking at everything backwards. Everything. Not just the earth, not just the shape of the earth we live on, but everything. We're looking at it in some way backwards. Now, some years ago, when I had a really old computer, I think it was like the 384 or whatever you call it, I used to still play games back in those days. That was all I had a computer for, was pretty much to play games and write letters on. I had no internet, but I eventually got connected to the internet. I think that's where I found this game. I can't find it again since, and I really wish I could, because it was actually called Helios, and it was said in the description for it, now this was pretty freaky in a way, it said that the author of this game was given it from aliens. I shit you not. I used to still believe in aliens back then. I was like, that's a bit weird. And the idea of this game is, it was a maze game, one of those time-consuming games where you just moved something around in a maze and had little traps and things to avoid. But the beauty of this one is that your character was a helium balloon. And the idea was you had to use little propulsion, like little to move along. You couldn't bump into the walls too much. I didn't think that really hurt you, but you had to go to fans before you ran out of air. And then there are lots of other traps and things you had to go through. So it was quite tricky and everything, lots of fun. But the thing is to try and to conserve the air, the right amount, until you got to the next fan, the air pump. And that's what reinflated your balloon. And then you had enough power to keep propelling again. And it's kind of inspired me in a way, is that game came to me for a reason. And it was called Helios, the same name that I've given my helium blimp balloon idea, running off compressed air. So if anybody can ever find that game, I'd be so grateful to find a copy of it, because I cannot. I've searched and searched and searched, because I just thought, I need to learn about this again. It's very interesting. But my idea is you don't necessarily have to go to an air pumping station to refuel, even though that would also work. When every garage we go to, you can get your air for free. So all you need to do is go and hover above the air pump, pick it up, recharge your big compression tubes that you're running off. You're good to go again, free of charge. But my idea is you can actually carry your own air compressor on board and just compress the air as you need it. Why would you compress air for a hot air balloon? It's not a hot air balloon, schmiggy schmudler. It's a helium blimp to transport yourself, so you don't have to bloody drive a dangerous metallic vehicle pumping fumes into the air. You're hovering through the air, you're flying like a bird, free and quiet, using compressed air to drive your vehicle through the sky. If I'm out of my mind, then thank goodness I wouldn't want to be in yours. You could use heat to gain elevation if you wanted to, but it's mostly helium is your main ballast. And then as you need extra elevation, you use your hydrogen generator, which will also help you float. And you could use heat by using another technology, which I've also told before, and that is where you use, on your wingtips, you use, what are they called again? The opposite of cameras, projectors. You have a camera on each side with a projector. And if you project a dark color onto the body of your big blimp, the darkness soaks up the heat of the sun quicker. So then the heat will cause it to rise quicker as well. And then you could project a different colored light once you've got sufficient amount of buoyancy to be the height you want to be. And if you really wanted to, you could use the cameras at either end to project an image of either side onto your blimp to have virtual invisibility. So what is going to run the pump and motor? You haven't listened to a word I said before, mate. There's no pump and motor. There's a tiny little air compressor is the pump. There's no motor. You're using something like this thing right here. The Dyson air multiplier is the future of technology for how we're going to get around. This here is a little rim. This here, as you can see the shape of that, is a wing. This is basically a circular wing. When you compress some air through here, it comes out this ring and it pushes out through that. And the natural flow of air is why it's called an air multiplier. So when you have this blowing on you when it was still up and running and working, it's a bladeless fan. And it carries more air. It will actually pick up from the surrounding air 15 to 17 times more air than what you're pumping in through it at the bottom. So if this is at the bottom of your, at the back of your big helium blimp, which is using natural vortex energy to break through the air anyway, it is increasing the multiplication of air. So for a tiny little air compressor in the back of a big sized one of these, a human vehicle sized one, you've got free propulsion through the air. Of course, you can scale it up. Right? Compressing air without a pump and motor. No, a pump is a motor. What are you talking about? I know about air compression. You know, I don't know if I told you that before. I spent 7 years running and building up my own massive pet store from scratch, basically. I bought a little closing down pet store, which had about 20, if that, 15 aquariums in it at the time. By the time I got out of it, when my marriage broke apart, there was over 100 aquariums in the place, which I set up all myself. Plus I had my own like 14 actually at home breeding tanks, breeding fish and so forth. And the way I ran the fish tanks in the shop was with these cheap little air-powered filters. I just ran a compression tube around the top of them all, which was a bay of about 60 there, 40 there, a couple of dozen more bigger ones over here. And each single one you can just run a little tube into, and the compression tube creates compression of air. And these little tubes then, which you can run several of those little tubes, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the structure that actually holds it together at the back of your lightweight, lighter than air blimp, pushing the air through nice and gently. You don't have to go with huge thrust. Helios DOS abandonware, that'd be the one. Awesome. Thanks, Russian bot. I'll have to take a screenshot of that because I could not find it for the life of me. Just quickly grab that. Thanks, man. Yeah, DOS abandonware. That's what it was called. Oh, it's Helios, so it's got the U in it. 1993 puzzle. Yeah, that's right. It was a really old puzzle game. Program called DOSBox. Yeah, man. Not that I actually want to sit and play it because I just don't play games at all anymore, but I will like to do it just for curiosity's sake because it was what inspired me to the fact that thinking outside the box rather than thinking of having to burn fuel to create energy, because then you've lost what they call the conservation of energy. This is doing it the opposite way. This is doing, it's okay, mate. I'm very patient. Yeah, the conservation of energy is trying to think of burning something to gain energy, but that's the opposite. I'm thinking of trying to harness what energy already exists, like the existing air. And that is why I say if the wing across the top of this blimp, which also has your solar panels, which will run your little air compressor pump, if this wing had openings at the front, like on a roller, So it's like a sandwich wing. And then you have little control inside for the pilot. You can open up this roller, so a headwind blowing into that can go through one-way valves, trap that air, and pump it out the back through your propulsion wing, the Dyson PAM multiplier type of thing. So you're actually harnessing a headwind to still push ahead through it naturally, using natural energy without burning and forcing your way through. Like the vortex energy, I didn't quite explain that, but vortex energy is the natural energy. The way a chicken lays an egg is the best way to explain it. So you have the egg shape, you've got a fat end and a skinny end. Can't quite draw that, but egg shape. That's basically the way a chicken egg comes out. It comes out the fat end first. Like you'd sort of think logically it'd come out the skinny end first, widen up the thing, but then what happens is it widen, and then it gets stuck. But if it comes out the fat end first, what happens is that really wide end just gently pushes against the muscles, which relax, and then the muscles relax back around it, which gently pushes out the egg. That is a concept of a blimp using the fat end first with a pointed end at the back going through the air. It is just gently nudging the air. So the air is just gently pushing around, and then it just wants to rush in behind to fill it. So then if it's rushing in behind to fill it into your air multiplier, which has also got more air pushed through it, you've got pretty simple free way of propulsion. As long as you're floating in the air by using enough helium and hydrogen as required, which you can make on demand, you can also store that hydrogen if you needed a little bit of jet propulsion in a hurry. For example, you needed to avoid something, then we just turn on the burners and off you go. Use your little kite surfer, get some extra propulsion if you're in a hurry and you're going a big distance somewhere. But for your normal general cruising around from place to place around your village or your home, well, you wouldn't need much at all. Yeah, but when you get up in the air, it's only scary if you haven't got the buoyancy. When you trust the buoyancy of your device because of the helium that you're in, and you can control the velocity of it, it's far more scary to be on a road in a dangerous metallic vehicle burning explosive fuels, running side by side with giant trucks and other vehicles going whoosh, whoosh, whoosh past each other. That to me is scary. Being up in a giant balloon where the worst that could happen if you bumped into someone is you bounced off them again, I think that's actually far less scary. Anyway, I've been going for like 3 hours and 22 minutes and 33 seconds. So I will have to say good day. I didn't get to all the comments that I intended to, of course, but I think I hopefully brought along a little bit of inspiration. That you don't have to think that every flat earther is a moron who can't think, who doesn't have original ideas. Good to see you come good. That's why I'm patient with people. People are often expressing their own insecurities, their own fears when they first start being a dick. And so it's just a matter of waiting for you to get over it. And hopefully we'll all learn to get along. Anyway, yeah, never knock what you don't understand. Investigate everything. If you seriously believe you live on a spinning ball in outer space, I suggest seriously investigate it and prove to yourself that you live on a spinning ball in outer space. The idea of curving oceans, thousands of miles high lumps of water between continents on a spinning ball is batshit crazy, Mr. Russian bot. So don't try and tell me what crazy is. I've investigated everything. I'm the voice of reason. I'm the voice of cool, calm logic. I think through everything. And if I start thinking that we might not be living on a spinning ball anymore, I can guarantee you it's because I have a very good reason for it. And I would not go and put myself on the line and make a big fool of myself if I didn't have a good reason. And I thought, well, you people that want to ridicule, I'm sorry, but you guys are the morons. That's just how it is. You point a finger at somebody, look at the three pointing back at yourself. I don't point fingers at people and start calling them names, but I do fight fire with fire. But I have come to my senses in recent weeks and realised that the best way to fight fire is with water. Water is the cool, calm energy. It is love manifest. It is the essence of love put here to give us life. That is who we are. We are 70 to 80% water. We are the combination of all the elements: earth, our bones, fire, for our souls, the living energy within us, air we breathe. We are air compression engines. That's what we run on. A lot of people say the heart is a pump. The heart is not a pump. The heart is a valve. The lungs are the pump. You try stop breathing for a few minutes and you'll see what happens. Your heart will stop because it's running off the air pressure that we live under. Earth, air, fire, and water combine to make life. Have a Merry Christmas. I'll see you all next time.